I call to order the meeting, Petaluma City Commission meeting for June 10th. Opening prayer is by Reverend Heath Tawes of First Presbyterian, and then we're going to have a Pledge of Allegiance by Jonathan Hayes. Please stand.
Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, I'm just reminded on this beautiful morning that we live in just an absolutely gorgeous place. And you have been so kind to us and just so gracious with us. And so as these men and women have a duty to us to protect this place, to encourage the citizens in this place, I do ask that you would be with them this morning, be with them as they deliberate important things here in the city, Lord. Be with all the workers here and the unsung heroes that keep our streets clean and keep our city safe, and watch over them, protect them, keep them. Be with their families, be with the first responders, Lord. We are so thankful that we can go out here, Lord, and enjoy our beaches and just have a great time and be so safe, Lord. And so we're thankful for that. I do ask that you would be with our new elected officials, that you would be with their families, that you would give them wisdom, understanding, Lord. If they err, help them to be quick to humility and repentance for that, Lord. Be with the other elected officials who are continuing their terms, Lord. I do ask that you would give them a spirit of unity together as they begin this new board here, and just be with us in all these things, Lord. Ultimately, we're just so thankful for your Son and the way you love us, and for forgiveness of sins. And Lord, on this beautiful, beautiful Tuesday morning, Lord, help us all to remember how much you love us and your kindness to us. We do pray all this in the name of Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay. Ms. Smith, will you call the roll?
Mayor Branch.
Here.
Commissioner Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Lucas.
Present.
Commissioner Granger.
Present.
Commissioner Street.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Has everyone reviewed the meeting minutes from the last meeting? If so, I'm entertaining a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Call the roll?
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Commissioner Street.
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yeah, yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, item 4, additions, deletions, and modifications to the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, staff has one. Item 12E. Item 12E, which is consideration to approve the purchasing card manual and adopt resolution 20250610.6. Would like to move that to the June 24th meeting. Received some comments over the weekend from a couple of the board members with some suggested changes, and would like to make those modifications and then provide written copies. So again, item 12E moved to June 24th is the request.
June 4th. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda amendment.
I'll motion to move 12E to June 24th.
Second.
Call the roll?
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Commissioner Street.
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
That's all from staff, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Proclamations.
No.
No?
Motion we approve the rest of the agenda.
Rest, that's right.
Second.
There we go. Call the roll?
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Commissioner Street.
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Patch, Commissioner Granger. All right, now we're on item 5. You're up.
I'm up.
Mr. Ed Turner, come on down.
Come on, everybody. It's 40 years. Let's go.
Yeah, man.
We all got it?
That's gonna clear out home real quick.
I did.
Good morning. How are you? Check back in 30 years.
We're all your friends, right?
No.
All right. So this is my first time doing this. So I do want to say this is my absolute pleasure and honor to be up here to honor Edward Turner for his 40 years of service with the city, which is just a little bit of time, right? I mean, you got another 40 to go, right? Like that's
Nope.
no. All right. So with that, I'll go ahead and read what we have here, which is Mr. Ed Turner is celebrating his 40th anniversary with the city of Panama City. After graduating from Rutherford High School in 1983, Ed began his career with the city in May of 1985. He passed the journeyman electrician exam on September 10th, 1988. In August of 2010, Ed was promoted to superintendent with lift stations. In September of 2019, Ed became the the underground utility superintendent. In June of 2021, Ed joined the logistics department as the facilities maintenance manager. Along the way, Ed has been named Employee of the Month twice, served as a judge during the Region 1 Residential Electrical Wiring Contest at Haney Technical College, as well as earning certificates in the Emerging Leaders Program, Leadership Development, and as a telemetry control unit technician. Ed Turner has committed his entire life to the city of Panama City. Everyone at some point in time has had to ask for his assistance. Whether it rains, it snows, it is cold, or is sweltering hot, Ed has been willing to help. There are countless former and current city team members that Ed has impacted. Ed is a person you can call when you are having problems. He readily takes those problems as his own and addresses the situation quickly without exception. When he is done, those problems seldom exist. Ed has been the linchpin, the purveyor of knowledge, experience, and training for each area that he has led and many that he has not. At the city, he brings leadership, direction, dedication, and a work ethic that is unsurpassed. As Ed gets closer to retirement, hopefully many years from now, as he transitions to his entrepreneurial endeavors, his many friends, coworkers, and acquaintances will still see his smiling face, share his positive outlook, and enjoy his personal conversations for many years to come. The city is grateful for everything he has done over the last 40 years, and today we celebrate and applaud his efforts. So I'd like to present this plaque to you. It says, City of Panama City, Florida, presented to Edward Turner in recognition of appreciation for 40 years of dedicated service to the City of Panama City, Florida, May 7th, 1985 through May 7th, 2025. There you go. There you go. There you go. Good talk, man.
You gotta get behind somebody with big.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Very early.
Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah. I tried hard not to.
When you have to come out from behind.
Thank you so much.
At least it's done.
Someone almost missed high five.
All right, bro.
Okay. Mr. Robinson, you're up.
Everybody should just stay up here. We call Waffle House.
Yep. Well, let's see what's the drill. Let's go this way. This way.
This is great. Just remember, it's up millions of people. No, and
25 years. Reading things were possibly my nightmare from high school. Here I am. Nice to meet you. Yeah.
I was saying.
Okay. Got everybody here? Yeah, can we hear me? Yeah. All right, Kenneth Robinson, engineering inspector, 25 years of service. 25 years. Today, we have the distinct honor of recognizing someone whose name has become synonymous with knowledge, dependability, and dedication. Mr. Kenneth Robinson is known as Robbie or That Guy. That's a good nickname. Kenneth's journey began with us on April 18th, 2000, a quarter century of service, insight, and knowledge, starting as an equipment operator number 2 in underground utilities, then moving to foreman before his current role as engineering inspector. Kenneth has worn many hats, each one with unwavering commitment to maintaining excellence. But beyond his job titles and duties, Kenneth represents something every organization strives to have but rarely finds: a true subject matter expert in underground utilities. Whether you're new on the job or a seasoned veteran, whether you have a question about what's beneath our streets, you'll go to Kenneth. His experience isn't just valuable, it's foundational. It is important to note that progress isn't only defined by a job title. Sometimes it's defined by impact. And Kenneth, your impact runs deep, and literally and figuratively. Good joke. You've led teams, supported colleagues, solved problems others couldn't see, and helped build the foundation others rely on every day. Your work has saved time and resources, and in many cases prevented serious safety issues. You've taught others not only how to do the work, but how to think critically about it. That's leadership and that's legacy. So today, we don't just recognize your years of service, we recognize your value, your voice, and your presence. Kenneth, you are a valuable, vital part of our team. And while the road hasn't always looked the way it should have, your journey continues to inspire us. Thank you for everything you've done and continue to do with such pride, skill, and heart. Awesome. Let me look cute. So I'll scrunch together like we love each other. There we go. No one get behind me. No, you can't see behind me. Clint can stand behind you. No one else can. You're good. Yeah, awesome. Great job. Great to meet you.
Congratulations.
Just
You didn't win at fantasy football. You did this, man. That's a mean burn.
Did you write that? You write that.
Oh, Jared.
One more, Gary. Got one more. My colleagues.
My bad.
Aqua. I want to come down for that picture.
No.
I love them colleagues.
Good morning. I'd like to call forward the folks from Chautauqua and Bay High Schools. Yes.
Morning, good to see you. Good morning.
Robbie, you can join if you
Good morning. On behalf of the City of Panama City, I am proud to present this certificate of recognition to Chautauqua Learn and Serve Charter School and to Bay High School in honor of their partnership for being named one of America's Canopy Schools by the Center on Reinventing Public Education, a project of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This is no ordinary designation. The Canopy Schools recognition honors schools that go above and beyond to serve every student, especially those often left at the margins. And that's exactly what Chautauqua does every single day. Led by the visionary and tireless Mrs. Cynthia McCauley, a veteran special educator who believes in the dignity and potential of every child. Chautauqua is more than a school. It is a movement. It's a model of what education should look like when it centers empathy, purpose, and community. From feeding the hungry and beautifying Bay High School to traveling the world to advocate for inclusive education, these students with exceptionalities are proving that ability is not defined by limitation, but by opportunity and heart. Together with our friends at Bay High School, ooh, go Big Red, their students engage in service learning and peer learning that break down barriers, build up communities, and broaden the very definition of what school can be. Mrs. McCauley once said, "This award speaks to the quiet power of doing what's right. We don't do this work for attention, we do it because it matters." Well, today, we give you that attention, not for the spotlight, but because your work matters so much to this community, to this nation, and to the future of education. And so it's with great admiration, gratitude, and pride, I present this certificate of recognition, these certificates, to Chautauqua Learn and Serve Charter School and to Bay High School, my alma mater, by the way, for your unwavering commitment to inclusive, life-changing education. Congratulations, and thank you both.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay. Jonathan, you going to read the announcements?
No, sir, that's on you.
No, we talked about you. You were going to read them.
All right.
Remember I said I want to remove them.
Yes, so you'll have to hand them. They're in your script, sir.
They're in my script?
Thank you, ma'am.
No, not my script.
That'll be fine.
Oh, there. Are.
Community announcements for the City of Panama City. The City of Panama City, you can stay informed and engaged with the latest happenings in Panama City. We encourage you to participate in our diverse range of events, programs, and meetings designed to foster a dynamic and connected community. For more details and updates, please visit our website at panamacity.gov and follow the City of Panama City Facebook page. Join us for Kicking It with Dad, a Father's Day bash on June 14th at Mid-City Field. This family-friendly celebration is all about honoring the amazing dads in our community with a fun-filled afternoon of kickball, basketball shooting contest, and a classic cookout. Come ready to compete, laugh, and make memories. Food and drinks are provided, and registration starts on-site at 12 p.m. Think you've got what it takes to be crowned the ultimate dad this Father's Day? Let's find out. On the 250th anniversary of the United States Army, the City of Panama City, in partnership with regional military bases, military units in the community, will host a special celebration on the downtown Panama City Marina, honoring all military branches, service members, and their families. Join us on June 14th for a 5K starting at 7 a.m. I've heard the mayor is going to be running that 5K, followed by a fitness challenge at 8 a.m. and a formal ceremony at 9 a.m. featuring the presentation of colors, a live national anthem performance, and remarks from local military leaders. From 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., enjoy performance by the 13th Army Band, history and interactive displays, military equipment, and family-friendly activities. Registration for the 5K is available at the website that is displayed, and breakdown of the event and more information can be found on the city website, including where to sign up. The birthday celebrations for the U.S. Army continue into the evening. Enjoy free military documentaries at the Hotel Indigo Lawn at 7 Harrison Avenue at 6 p.m. and again at 7:45 p.m. Experience powerful first-hand stories from local war dog veterans and a guided whiskey tasting featuring Horse Soldier bourbon with light food pairings provided. VIP tickets include reserved seating and a handcrafted Horse Soldier Old Fashioned at Atelier. Sessions will be held at 5 p.m., 7 p.m., and 9 p.m. at Harrison, Brevard, and Duncan Attorneys at Law at 101 Harrison Avenue and Atelier at 100 Harrison Avenue in Panama City. For more information, you can contact us at pcr@panamacity.gov or by calling 872-3199. Join us for the flag football camp with Javian Elliott for an unforgettable day of football fun on June 16th and June 27th at 6 p.m. at the Frank Nelson Complex. This camp offers a unique opportunity to learn from a professional with coaching focused on skill development, team building, and engaging activities. Boys and girls ages 4 through 17 of all skill levels are welcome to participate. Don't miss out on this exciting chance to grow, play, and train with a pro. As a reminder, the administrative offices of the City of Panama City will be closed on Thursday, June 19th in honor of Juneteenth. Garbage and trash services will not occur. Normal businesses and all city services will resume on Friday, June 20th. The new City Commission will host a transportation impact fee workshop on Thursday, June 26th from 4 to 7 p.m. right here in the Bay County Government Building Chambers. Citizens will be able to attend in person or watch the live stream on the city website at panamacity.gov. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, number 6, public hearings.
Yes, sir. Item number 6A is ordinance number 3265, allowing golf carts in Candlewick, Glenwood, Forest Park, Lake Huntington, Liberty, and downtown North, and providing for child safety restraint requirements. Mayor and Commissioners, attached for your consideration is the final reading of ordinance number 3265 that amends the golf cart section of the municipal code to include the Candlewick area, the Glenwood area, the Forest Park area, the Lake Huntington area, the Liberty subdivision area, and the downtown North areas that golf carts can travel on or cross streets therein, and provides for child safety restraint requirements. Staff recommends having the final reading and that the commission adopt this ordinance, and the relevant map is available on your screen and in your packet. Mr. Mayor?
This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak, please come to the podium. All right, seeing none, public comments are closed. Any discussion?
Motion that we approve.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, 6B.
Nope.
Oh, you have to read the ordinance. My bad.
The title
6A.
for this is an ordinance 3265, an ordinance of the City of Panama City amending ordinance 3233, amending Chapter 22, Article 7, allowing golf carts in the Candlewick, downtown North, Lake Huntington, Forest Park, Liberty, and Glenwood area, requiring child safety restraints for children 5 years of age or younger, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for severance of this ordinance if any part is declared invalid, and providing for an effective date.
Item 6B is the first of 2 public hearings on ordinance 3266, an ordinance amending section 102-2 and section 102-36 of the Unified Land Development Code, or ULDC, providing exceptions for development order review and process. Relevant background information is enclosed in your packet. Staff recommends the City Commission approve the request. See staff findings again in your report. This item was previously reviewed by the Planning Board on May 12th of 2025, and the Planning Board recommended approval unanimously. The following documents are enclosed: the ordinance and the staff analysis report and recommendation. Staff recommendation through the Director of Development Services that the City Commission conduct the first of 2 public hearings and then approve the ordinance. I will add, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, there was a couple of questions from some of y'all, and I just wanted to briefly expand on those regarding section 106-3, environmentally significant areas. That is an objective category, and that is environmentally significant resources are those identified as being within the conservation special treatment zone set forth in the section, and include the following: wetlands, marine resources, including seagrass beds, estuaries, submerged lands, and estuarine shorelines, identified wildlife habitat, designated flood zones, and protected trees. And the protected trees would include dogwood and redbuds with a diameter at breast height of 3 inches or more, or other trees except pine trees, except with a diameter at breast height of 10 inches or more. So I know there was some concern that there might be more of a subjective issue, but it is not. Environmentally significant resources and areas are considered very subjective and spelled out as I just laid. Mr. Mayor?
This is a public hearing. If you have any comments, please come to the podium. All right. Seeing none, Commissioners, any discussion? Looking for a motion to accept?
It won't need a motion today, Mr. Mayor. It's just first reading.
No, it's first reading. My apologies.
I would like to read the title. Ordinance number 3266, an ordinance of the City Commission of Panama City, Florida, amending sections 102-2 and 102-36 of the Unified Land Development Code, providing exceptions to the requirement for a development order, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
All right, moving into item number 7, which are quasi-judicial hearings. During quasi-judicial proceedings, the commission will hear evidence and render a decision regarding the matter presented based upon the evidence received. The parties before the commission and the public are entitled to present evidence, documents, witnesses, etc., and cross-examine any witnesses. All parties and witnesses will be under oath and the entire proceedings recorded. The commission is not bound by the strict rules of evidence and may consider any evidence which it deems relevant and trustworthy. Any member of the commission may ask questions of the parties or of the witnesses. Since quasi-judicial proceedings are legal in nature, everyone is expected to adhere to proper courtroom decorum and etiquette. Any comments or objections should be directed to the mayor. The burden of proof in quasi-judicial proceedings rests with the applicant. Therefore, the applicant has the opportunity to address the commission last, after all public participation, and before the commission deliberates. Mr. Zimmerman?
At this time, we'll swear witnesses. Anyone that anticipates they'll be testifying, and if you would please stand, including Mr. Fuller, and we have Mr. Greer. So if you'd repeat after me. Do you swear? And you don't have to repeat, you just answer. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. At the ex parte communications, or when communications are received outside of this public hearing and it's outside of the agenda package, outside of what the Planning Commission heard after the city manager has introduced it, the City Commission needs to disclose any ex parte communications only if it's information that you intend to rely on in making your decision, and it's information different than all of those things I've just outlined. So at the if you feel before we vote that you need to disclose something, then if you would do so at that time.
All right.
It's public hearing.
Yep. Item 7A is the first of 2 public hearings on Ordinance 3267, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city to reflect a zoning designation of a planned unit development, or PUD, for a property located at 63S12W-1, or parcel ID 03875-000-000. Background information: the applicant, Mr. Ray Greer, has requested a rezoning to a PUD on behalf of the property owner, Mr. Thomas Shelton. The subject property encompasses approximately 1,200 acres, which was previously annexed into the city in 1998 and given a future land use designation of urban community in 2010. Staff recommends the City Commission approve the request. This item was previously reviewed by the Planning Board on May 12th of 2025, and the Planning Board recommended approval unanimously. Appropriate documents are enclosed. Again, staff recommendation through the Director of Development Services is that the City Commission conduct the first public hearing. Mr. Mayor?
Any public participation? Please state your name and address for the record, too.
I'm Ray Greer. My address is 2910 Cary Forest Parkway, Tallahassee, Florida, and I am the applicant's representative. What I would like to do is just take a minute and go back to 2010. In 2010, there were several parcels. There's 5 total that make up Panama City North. The evaluation appraisal report to the comprehensive plan was being prepared. These parcels came into the city. There was a couple of them that was being annexed at that time too, that made up Panama City North. During that process, what the city did was to create the Panama City North. It's set up in the comp plan. It's a destination, has a map that goes with it. And by doing this, they also established in the comprehensive plan the future land use element, the urban community category discussion about the Panama City North, and that all the land uses in Panama City North would have an urban community category designation. So at that time, the 4 parcels did move forward, including this one. It was designated urban community. It has its own sub-area policy that applies to it, sets the maximum limits of residential units and also commercial units. It's all the max, which is 1,800 units, 450,000 square feet of non-residential. And it requires it to be a mixed-use development upon development of the overall project itself. So in doing this, the urban community category does not have a zoning category. So all these properties, until they come in for a PUD, does not have zoning. So this property has a land use category and it's had one for 15 years. But today it has an agriculture zoning district. So what we're here today is to change the zoning. I have worked with the landowner for the last 15 years. We have, on this property itself, we have coordinated with the city and on multiple things, including there is a road right away that goes from John Pitts up through the north to the port of Panama City's inland port facility property to the very north. It is a 100-foot right of way. It has water and sewer lines that the city had put in it running up to the port. They are dry lines. They are existing. Mr. Shelton had given that property to the city, and ultimately, hopefully in the future, it will be the spine road for the development. Also have worked with DOT on keeping the Gulf Coast Parkway. The Gulf Coast Parkway, as you know, has had many routes as it came through the whole portions of the county. So the second phase, which the first phase is the tram road from 98 to Star Avenue, the second phase of that section will be from Star Avenue up to 231. It has stayed in this, coordinated with DOT many times. It crosses through Tom's property, Mr. Shelton's property. And why that's significant is it will provide an opportunity to connect John Pitts to the Gulf Coast Parkway when it's built. So that's significant too, and will provide another way out. And then in addition, over the years, we've looked and I've done several different master plans for Mr. Shelton on, how we could develop this property and how this property could develop in the future. We have met with the city several times to discuss water, sewer issues, traffic issues, transportation issues. This sits at the end of John Pitts. John Pitts is 4 miles long from when you leave this property. So we completely understand, as development moves forward, there will be a lot of impacts. And this is a development of this size, these mixed-use communities. We're looking at a build-out of at least 15 years or more. And this is a long-term project, but what we're looking to do is to continue to plan for it. And, we've had meetings with the city about citing public facilities on this property, and I still think it's something that's very doable as, Panama City North continues to grow. Liberty's the first real development that's occurred up there. There's the other parcels that surround it. And long term, the growth is going to occur. And as part of this property and as part of the overall development, we're going to provide civic and public uses. It is put into our sub-area CASI category that's in the comprehensive plan that does apply. But today, what we're here for is actually to rezone it. So we're going to continue to work on development plans, and we'll come back to you, and we'll come back to you with a development plan in the future and development orders for phases. But right now, we're here to rezone it, establish our zoning, the zoning itself, because we don't have a zoning category. The PUD sets the setbacks, minimum lot sizes, all that stuff. So that will give us the tool to actually fine-tune master plans and begin, long-term coordination of development of the property. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I got a question, and you touched on it. As a citizen, what you hear is this thing's coming tomorrow, and oh my gosh, we're going to turn around. It's going to be something I hate and I don't want in my backyard. So go through the process of how many times does the public have input on this before they turn around and there's a thing that they don't like?
Sure, and what will have to be done is when the development plan is actually, and this is a requirement of the PUD and for Panama City North, when the development plan is actually fine-tuned, master plan, and we have a development plan that we can show you, then it comes back. It'll come back to the city commission. There'll be a public hearing. There'll be notices sent out, and the public will have an opportunity to speak and see it. The commission will have an opportunity to speak, to see it, to review it, to ask, for additional stuff. We can then discuss water, sewer. We'll know how many units we're asking for and what commercial is going where, and we'll have a better idea of how you're going to actually plan and develop this property, and phases too. So you'll be able to see all of that. And so that will come back. That's the second phase of this process, is to come back with an actual master plan. It's actually called the PUD Final Master Plan. And so that will come to you at a later date, and it will come to you as a public hearing. And then all development orders, of course, will also. They'll have to be submitted to the city, just like a regular development would.
Sure.
So today, all this does is approve the PUD. It's just basically the zoning of the property.
It's the first reading.
That's right.
So nothing is approved today.
First reading.
Yeah. Just want to be clear. Nothing was approved today. This is just the first reading. So to your point, this is one of two bites of the apple for just the zoning piece. And then as each time it comes forward, it's usually two meetings that has to come in front of us. So it's actually a pretty drawn out, long process, especially from probably your side. It feels pretty drawn out.
Yeah, I did the Liberty PUD. Liberty, ACCL Bay Properties is also my client. I did the Liberty PUD that exists today for the north part of the Liberty development. And we did the same process. Brought the master plan back and with it fine-tuned development plan as it is today, in which that was approved. And of course, they submit for development orders and they go to public hearings also.
Makes sense. And so it's either we move forward at some point in the next meeting with a PUD or keep it agriculture.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank you guys for as comprehensive as you've been in your application process with the traffic study, noticing that we can use the development order to control kind of the future and planning of that. Is worked with Ray for a long time, and when he says the process, he knows it, and he will make it available for the public in terms of pictures and graphs, and we want their input. But this is a great opportunity for Panama City North. Yeah.
I agree.
I'll also point out that there's been signs that have been placed anytime an action like this goes forward. There's always signs that are placed that people, directs people to where they can get more information. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
No action taken.
No action.
Okay. I'd like to read the title. Ordinance number 3267, an ordinance zoning a parcel of land located at 6-3 South 12 West, parcel ID, Panama City, Florida, having approximately 1,200 acres, planned unit development PUD, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Okay, audience participation. You're limited to 3 minutes. Come to the podium if you have something to discuss. And we're changing the format of this. This is not a forum. We're not going back with a Q&A. You can give your comments. We're going to listen to them and ingest them. We can decide to respond or not. I'm cutting everyone off at 3 minutes and 1 second. Even if my own mother was here telling you a baby story about me, I would cut her off at 3 minutes and 1 second. So just letting you know the rules. Thank you.
Brenda Lewis Williams, 1007 North Center Avenue. I have some questions, and no aspersions towards you, Ms. Smith, but can we get a detailed delineation of what these expenses are? You gave me the whole bundle, and how may I get that? What is in that package? That's one. And the other one is, I am requesting, and I've made a request to the city manager and all those involved for the MBE, DBEs, subcontractors on the MLK and the Martin Luther King, in the Martin Theater project. I've been told that it is the subcontractor's duty to provide that information. That's not true. I've been told it was a department head's responsibility. That's not true. Per contracting with FEMA dollars, it is incumbent upon the agency that let the contract to divulge that information, and I'd like to have it, which includes name, address, etc., all of those things. And I sent an email to Jonathan.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Patty Sunday. Good morning.
Congratulations, new folks, Mayor Branch, my commissioner, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Street, congratulations, welcome back. I have two items, Patty Sunday, 1115 Fairland. One is an update on the traffic, Jonathan, that I told you about with the trucks. I've had one 18-wheeler come. I think they may have gotten the short-term message because they came down Fairland like it was a parade. And I could have sworn they slowed down at my house, and that's okay. However, I was mowing some of my senior neighbors' yards closer to 11th last week, and I turned the mower off to walk the mower back, and I heard an 18-wheeler coming down 11th, and I heard the brakes squeak. It was not United Rentals. It was another 18-wheeler, kind of like a cargo truck that then turned. I saw them pause and look and try to find their way out. So I'm asking for a sign. I'm also asking for that traffic study, because between 11 and 15th, as the traffic grows, we're going to get those cut-throughs in a residential neighborhood. So I'm asking for some policy on that. The second thing, in 2 minutes, I want to talk briefly about 3 examples of gentrification. One is in the city where I was born, which is Ybor City, Florida. The second is near Sweet Bay. And third is where I live on the hill in St. Andrews. Ybor City was founded in 1888. There were Spanish people that existed from the discovery of Florida. Then the Italians came. And then there were the Cubans that came and made cigars. And they did really well till 1920. Fast forward, Depression, different things. It got gentrified, then it became nightclubs, and now it's urban for wealthy professionals. So that's an example in Florida of ethnic and commercial gentrification. The second is Sweet Bay. I got to study that with Mike Lane. And if you'll recall, at the beginning of that, there were trailers that were at the beginning of Sweet Bay. And so that was a form of affordable housing at that time. I don't know if they owned the land. I can't remember. Jared would probably know. Yeah, so they were renting land and owning a depreciating asset. So that eventually got resolved as Sweet Bay grew, right? So that's also gentrification. And then the third is where I live. My husband and I heard Commissioner Lucas give a speech when we first moved here, and it was wonderful, about her family on the hill. And then after World War II, the house that we live in was built as part of affordable housing by the federal government for first-time homebuyers. Now we have 4 rental houses on there, and mostly those, all 4 of them, yeah, the others are homeowners. I have seniors who are somewhat legacy citizens in their 80s and 90s, happen to be Caucasian, who are not part of the hill of Janice Lucas's, Commissioner Lucas's grandfather. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Yep. Anyone else? And Ms. Sunday, if you want to finish the comment, just send us an email.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good morning, all. Hank Picken, 820 West Beach Drive. I have a slide, I hope. Shouldn't count on my time.
Shouldn't count on his time.
That is not the correct slide, Mr. Smith. That's for the very end.
Let's start time.
This was the one, audience participation.
Got 3.
That's it. This quotation came across my PC earlier in the week, and I think it sums up exactly where we are on this infamous path. Aldous Huxley once said, "Facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored." And I think what we've got here is a situation where the commission and the city manager are ignoring the facts about this path. There are 4 facts that everybody seems to want to avoid addressing. Number 1 is the road and the road and right-of-way belong to the state, not the city. The second fact is that the city has already spent $1 million of the $8 million grant, and they have less than $7 million left to build this path. And the third point is that the right-of-way from the east side of Dagama all the way to the end to the east is not wide enough to accommodate anything more than about a 4-foot path. These facts are facts, and the fourth fact is this grant will expire on the 31st of December of this year. To address the 2 points that Mr. Hayes has taken issue with, number one, the spending is a quotation directly out of an exhibit in the city's accounting books, and it's exhibit number 898.1, multi-use path, beach draft multi-use path as of 3/31/25. And it duly noted that there is no cost added to that after the 30th of September. And yet the city is claiming that they're working with the FDOT to come up with a design that will satisfy FDOT's requirements. And that's apparently at no cost, which is hard to believe. The second thing is that the east side of the Gama, where the limits of the right-of-way limit it down to 4 feet, has also been taken issue. Mr. Hayes has said that he has checked with the city attorney, and the city attorney doesn't agree with my conclusion. I think that's great, no offense to Mr. Zimmerman, but the only person that counts is the FDOT. Why don't you ask the FDOT exactly what the right-of-way has? And last but not least, it's time to throw in the towel and get some direct answers to these questions, because
Thank you for your time.
we do not know
Thank you for your time.
what the state has told.
Thank you for your time. Anyone else? Public comments?
Hi, Derek Thomas, 1100 West 10th Street. Article 2, Section 8 of the Florida State Constitution says that public service is a public trust, and the public has the right to ensure and sustain that trust against abuse. I have not been able to do that because the city has not been keeping records. They came across to the property across the street, bush hogged it, couldn't get some of the stuff down because it was too thick, came back and he had a crew out there to do that work. Then they came back 6 months later and cleared half of it again. They spent enough money for grass seeds, bales of hay, 30 feet of rebar painted red, and the workers to install enough plastic mesh to cover this entire floor of this room. All of that, when the person bought the property 6 years ago for $80,000, according to your records, had it reduced to $23,000 the next year, and it's been working its way up to $26,000. They put $36,000 in fill dirt on that property, but never filed a permit and didn't pay taxes on what the property is actually worth. But the city has spent many times more than the total amount that they have paid in taxes. Just what they've paid in property taxes over the last 5 years, you've spent probably 2 or 3 times that amount of money. And you didn't keep any records. I've asked you repeatedly about the grass seed, about the plastic mesh, about why are city workers maintaining a property that's been maintained 4 or 5 times over the last 5 years, and half of that time was maintained by the city? I get no answers. They keep no records of this. That is wrong. It looks to me to be malfeasance. And in the textbook for the code enforcement that they put out right after Hurricane Michael, it says in the very back part of it that the decision of who code enforcement goes after and who they don't is made by local groups and organizations. I've been trying to find out who those people are because they're not elected, there's no apparent list of them, but they get to decide who code enforcement goes after and how the money is getting spent. Because at this property across the street that has flooded the entire neighborhood, there's at least half a dozen people who have spent more money buying dirt and dealing with the flooding than that person has paid in property taxes for the entire time that they've lived at that property. And the city only wants to help them. You could have gone out there and fixed it last year and it would have taken 1 day. One person with a backhoe could have fixed it in 1 day. But then you came back 6 additional days to spend money to do nothing but to enrich your friend's property. That looks to me to be malfeasance. But if you're not keeping records, I guess it doesn't really matter. Now, you don't keep records, and it's just wrong. And I'd like to know why the people next to him have had multiple code enforcement cases over the last 5 years, why the people across the street have had multiple code enforcement cases, but the person who has flooded the neighborhood, who's done so much actual physical damage to their neighbor's property, is immune from code enforcement. And I've asked, and I still haven't gotten the record for what code enforcement is.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, public comments are closed. Mayor's report, 9A. Mr. Hayes, can you read the memo?
I sure can. The Panama City Municipal Code includes the following language in the charter and related laws, Subpart A, Charter, Article 2, City Commission and Mayor Commission, Division 1, and General Section 30, the election and the duties of Mayor Pro Tem. The Commission shall annually elect one of its members to serve as Mayor Pro Tem, who shall perform the duties and exercise the powers of the mayor in the mayor's absence. In the event that both the mayor and the Mayor Pro Tem are absent, the Commission shall elect one of its members to serve as presiding officer and perform the duties of the mayor. Historically, the position has rotated amongst the commissioners. Based on the historical trend, the next Mayor Pro Tem in the rotation is Commissioner Brian Granger of Ward 3. The term of the position would be from June 10th, 2025 today through June 9th of 2026. Mr. Mayor?
I'm entertaining a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Mayor Pro Tem become Commissioner Brian Granger.
Second that.
All right, we have a first and a second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Brian, he's on vacation next.
Yeah, thanks.
9B, please.
The City of Panama City is a voting delegate of the Bay County Transportation Planning Organization, or TPO. Each member of the City Commission is a member of the board of the TPO. Meetings occur up to 6 times a year on the fourth Wednesday of the month at 3:30 p.m. at the Bay County Transit Office located at 1010 Cone Avenue in Panama City. The Bay County Transportation Planning Organization is the local intergovernmental transportation policy board for Bay County, Florida. The board makes decisions regarding transportation at a regional level. The Bay County TPO is required by both state and federal law to establish a cooperative, comprehensive, and continuing planning process. The TPO also works to increase safety, security, accessibility, mobility, and connectivity for people and goods. The following members comprise the board of the Bay County TPO: the 5 seats of the Bay County Commission, the 5 seats of the Panama City Commission, 2 seats from the Panama City Beach Commission or Council, 2 seats from the Callaway Commission, 2 seats from the Lynn Haven Commission, 1 seat from the Mexico Beach Council, 1 seat from the Parker Council, and 1 seat from the Springfield Commission. Don't believe any action is needed. This is just a notice, Mr. Mayor.
All right. In discussion?
I'll just add that additionally, we have 3 staffers that are on the TCC, which is the technical review, what is the TCC? Technical Coordinating Committee. We meet the same day. It's myself, Public Works Director Clint Murphy, and Deputy City Engineer Matt DeVito. So we review the agenda and make recommendations as well earlier in the day prior to y'all meeting at 3:30.
Okay, closing 9B, moving to 9C. Mr. Hayes, please read the memo.
9C is the announcement of vacancies on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee has 5 positions, 1 each for the mayor and the commissioners respectively to appoint, and for the commission as a whole to then approve. These are the initial appointments for the committee. Appointments are for a 12-month period. Interested parties should complete a board application located on the city's website at panamacity.gov, or they can contact the city clerk at cityclerk@panamacity.gov. This is based on action that took place on March 25th of 2025. I do believe that we have some applications. I would defer to Madam Clerk in regards to that. But as I've shared, it would be our desire, either if anybody has a nomination today or by the June 24th meeting, so that we can get these ratified and in position and hopefully begin their work on behalf of the City Commission by July, beginning of July.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We have applications from Ron Gabaldon, sponsored by Commissioner Granger. Ethan Brown was not sponsored. Susan Cook was not sponsored. Brandon Henderson Jansenius was sponsored by Commissioner Halligus. Nancy Hudson was sponsored by Commissioner Street. And Danielle Pierce has been sponsored by Commissioner Lucas. So those are the applications we have received thus far. You are welcome to nominate and appoint today any or all of the members of the committee.
Can we nominate someone who hasn't emailed you? No?
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to nominate Shamika Arnold.
Shamika
Should
Arnold.
email you.
Okay. So do you want to vote on these nominations?
Do we want to?
I'm fine voting on
If
it.
if the 5 of the elected officials are good, that would be great. They go ahead and get going now.
My understanding is these are our appointments, so I didn't know. Have you guys had an opportunity to discuss, Robbie?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe you and Barry
Right,
at least like
because
to-
Commissioner Halligus was the sponsor for Mr. Jensenius. So I don't
You
know.
could affirm the 4 today, and then Commissioner Hughes could
good
bring
with
his
that.
back at the June 24th meeting.
Did you need to restate who we were appointing?
No, I have the list.
Okay, so looking for a motion.
Motion, we approve the 4.
And looking for a second.
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, moving on to item
9D, that was yours.
9D,
Yes,
virtual
sir.
workshop, that's me. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of echo from my conversation I had with you guys at the CRA meeting, which I want to kind of reframe and break up this meeting into different meetings. And here's sort of the things I'm trying to avoid. Being on the other side of the oath, which is what Janice Lucas always says, you often don't see an agenda item until the day it's being voted on. And then you sit in the audience for an hour or two, and then you try to make a public comment, and it's kind of already on the finish line. And I want to push feedback much earlier. So the CRA, we adopted virtual workshops. So that's one of the 3 meetings I want to have. So I want to have virtual workshops more often for the CRA board and the city commission board. Non-voting through Zoom or whatever platform we want to use, recorded, put on Facebook and on the website. That's where ideas start. It's us discussing. Even discussing something like this is an odd way to have collaboration, because you normally you would sit in a circle or something if you're collaborating with someone. So this is not conducive to collaboration. And I want to push the ideas of when we're forming ideas to the public much earlier so they can weigh in on things that we're working on. So I want to have virtual meetings. And then I want to have, one of the comments about early morning meetings like this or evening meetings is people can't come. I can't come. So I would like to have either quarterly or monthly or every 6 weeks, a town hall-like meeting in City Hall on a Saturday morning, very minimal staff, and that's minimal staff as well for the virtual meetings, but minimal staff for the town hall meetings, and it's just public comments. What problems are you having? What are you seeing? We want emails. I would much prefer problems coming to us via email than waiting for a meeting, but I want to invite the public into City Hall on a Saturday during a farmer's market, or we can bounce it between wards, but wherever people are and they're gathering, that's where we talk about, here's the parks, here's all the problems that you're having. And then the city commission meeting is where we do business, and it is no public comments unless it's with an agenda item. Panama City residents only, because that's who we work for, is Panama City residents. And this meeting should be short, and we should really understand how each other are going to be voting much more, because we're discussing things in virtual meetings and town hall meetings. We're hearing all these discussions much earlier. I think it'll save staff time. It'll save staff time from working on an idea, getting it to the finish line, and then us backing from it. And so those are the 3 meeting types I'd like to present.
I think it's a great idea. Getting the public involved as soon as possible. It's not going to maybe change or stop a project, but it's certainly going to maybe have some modification and get, what I heard on the campaign trail is people want to hear something. They want to have a voice. They want to know what's going on sooner than later, not before it shows up at their doorstep. And I, for one, could certainly learn from what they want to do.
Agreed. There's a lot of smart citizens who want to help, and I don't want to be blindsided with feedback or a terrific perspective right before a vote. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
So your specifics are the Saturday doing a kind of open town hall style, come and talk to any of us, publicly notice, hey, give us feedback. Here's the things that are coming up, kind of thing.
Super casual. Jonathan could be the only one there. It's in the rotunda. It's printouts of parks and printouts of projects that are happening. Agreed, yes.
And was there any further in the virtual workshop that you're wanting to do with us, or was that just the one you wanted to tackle today? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
No, it doesn't.
Like, are you wanting to do other virtual workshops, or just really today, this is the one we're tackling?
Yes, so maybe they're two separate CRA meet, I don't really know, or the frequency, and I believe based on the procedures, I can call special workshops, but I'd like it to where anyone can feel like, and it's really, I'll give you an example, this is a silly example, but let's say Janice really loves blue slides at parks, and I just love green slides, and I'm like, we gotta call a virtual workshop, because Janice and I need to talk about the colors of these slides. And you may say, I don't really care what color the slides are. You don't even have to come. If you're indifferent to the thing, you let Janice and I talk about which color is the best for slides in that virtual workshop, and that gives staff, before they go get a quote on the blue slides or the orange slides or the green slides, they know that what perspective we like, and citizens can weigh in on what color slides they like.
So could a good example of this format be the Monday morning with manager kind of, hey, it's open. Hey,
It's open,
people can
exactly.
come in, you can watch it online, you can not, but it's really not this intensive process for the staff and keeping meeting minutes and all this other stuff that comes with that. It's just really an open format. You attend. If you don't attend, then obviously you don't have the information. But I like the city manager virtual format just because it is the least intensive. We're not building a bunch of historical data. It really is meant, come give your opinion, get some feedback, talk about stuff, and then we kind of go from that. I love the idea.
And potentially, we could even get rid of the Monday morning meeting with the manager, because we're doing the same thing on a regular basis.
So I love the idea. So I'm going to start with that. I do think that we would need to engage Kristen's office more because City Commission argues over slide colors tonight. Could be a potential headline that comes out of a discussion like that, right? And when this is meant to just be where we're just discussing, and the potential for people to take something that is said in one of those meetings and just run with it is very high. And so I would just suggest that as we move forward, that Kristen and her team would be able to kind of summarize what was discussed and provide that as an output from these types of things to the public.
Agreed, and it's also about framing the discussion of, potentially even with Ray's project, like the timeline or the expectation of the citizen, how they're going to look at the information and potentially misinterpret it. So I agree, we don't want more misinformation.
Can I ask one question really quick? Jan, does the morning with the manager, the format that's used there, would that, if it's publicly noticed, would that meet the criteria for the requirements on public records and those kind of things?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's no reason to kind of keep the historical recordings or anything else like that. It really is just an open discussion. You don't have to keep all of this.
We don't have to, the meetings would be recorded, yeah.
But all you have to do is keep the meeting minutes though, right?
Right.
That's
The recording,
Okay.
yeah.
What would you suggest? So do we keep the recordings of the morning with the manager?
I'm sure we do.
I don't think so. They're not
Yeah, no,
recorded.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So I'm not an elected official, and we're not creating any records, so I don't believe it's recorded, correct? Yeah, we do not record Monday morning with the manager.
Well, these would need to be recorded, yeah.
That should be difficult.
As soon as more than one of us gets involved.
Correct.
I think Nevin has something to share.
If the goal is to let it be viewed later, then obviously you need to have it recorded. The legal requirement is just minimal minutes, so you don't have to legally record it, but you do have to take some type of.
So like what we did with the swearing in ceremony, like that had that. Okay.
Yeah,
I think that would be the best route. So keep it as simple as possible so we can do it as frequently as possible.
Yeah, that would lower the overhead required to do it.
I certainly like the idea of engaging the public more, having that opportunity for the discussion, and also for this meeting to be the business meeting that we go through, so that the intent I see in moving forward with the virtual workshops and the quarterly, whatever time period that we land on for those regular Saturday morning town halls, is to engage public in a less strict manner than what we have during a regular city commission meeting. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this forth.
Absolutely. Do we have vote on this? How do we move forward with these ideas?
So I think you made the point, Mr. Mayor, that I think we're talking about two separate things. When I hear a workshop and kind of getting ahead of some of the items that be on the agenda, I mean, that probably needs to be closer to the front of the month. And, we'll know through the different departments and specifically, through action through Mr. Fuller's department and what the planning board has done, kind of letting you know what's on the horizon. Not necessarily knowing exactly what meeting it may come before y'all at, but know that it's kind of in the hopper. And so, I would suggest that, I think you got to be consistent with it. So I don't know if we do so we do the first Monday of the month is Monday morning with the manager. We could transition that to be, Monday workshop with this commission and city manager or something, and we can kind of, again, based on feedback, we know what projects are out for bid. We know, so through Public Works, through our police and fire departments, we kind of know what's kind of coming in the next 4 to 6 weeks, so we can kind of just update you on that and answer generic questions. I think that's a great idea, and if we record it, that can still happen Monday morning, potentially in lieu of Monday morning with the manager. We'll come up with a new name. And then second of all, the town hall thing, I think you said you'd want that to be on a Saturday. I don't quite know if that needs to be every single month. We can maybe start that way, or maybe it's every odd month. On the first Saturday, we meet at town hall in either room 10 or the rotunda at City Hall. I do think at a minimum, a consensus from your colleagues would be good, or maybe even a formal vote. I would defer to Mr. Zimmerman on that.
As a suggestion, I think if there's a consensus, then I think it would be good to write down some very simple procedures as far as this is how the virtual workshop will be conducted, that there will be a room available to where somebody who doesn't have access to a device could come and watch. Just
or maybe we want to just come and participate at City Hall rather than being on our computer someplace. So
yeah, you could. Yeah, but that's something that it would be helpful to make sure that at least everyone has seen something in writing, and yes, this is how we want to start it, how meetings are called, and then also on the Saturdays. And that can just come back at a subsequent meeting and go from there.
Okay, so we could entertain a Monday evening meeting or late afternoon, recorded on Zoom. You could also go to, room 110?
Just 10, sir.
Just 10? Okay. 10 in the basement, and we could start one, when's the soonest we could have the first workshop?
So, let's see, we could do one, you could do one the very first Monday of July if you wanted to, or we could potentially look at doing one next week. I know that Commissioner Hughes has some travel, but we could look at kind of maybe give us about a week, maybe next week, find a time to do a workshop to kind of look out over the next 30 to 45 days if you want, and then maybe after that, kind of rotate into, I don't know if you want to do the first Monday of the month or the first Friday of the month, but, it depends on, I know some of y'all have outside duties, so I would defer to you on the time, but I think picking a time each month for the workshop it needs to be consistent so folks kind of know when to expect it, to watch it online.
I like Monday evenings, Monday late afternoon.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, guys.
And you like to meet each Monday?
Yeah, what I'd hate to do is create a workshop that's not frequent enough and it's 3 hours long, and us winding up into deep discussions. And so I'd rather have it shorter more often, maybe they're 30 minutes long, but they're 15.
And also with the more frequent one, if one of us can't be there, then you're not feeling like, I missed this month's. Right. I've got to double up next month.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As a suggestion, you could do the Mondays, the first and third Mondays, which is obviously not a commission week. That's just one suggestion. I just think the key is to do it successful. I would recommend if the workshop that you're talking about, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest keeping that virtual and not doing it in person, because even in person, there's just, when you do it all in the room, there's just a different element that can be distracting and can add time to it and involves additional needs for security from the police and IT. So I do love the idea of the quote town hall, maybe every other month, that's going to be a little bit longer. And that's anybody, from what I understand, anybody can come and talk about anything that the city, our city specifically, not any city in Bay County, has to do. So I don't know that needs to be twice a month.
Sure. So can we coordinate outside this meeting for the first town hall in July, and then the first virtual meeting twice a month, starting in 2 weeks from now?
Yeah.
On Mondays. Do we need a motion for that, or can we just?
I don't think. Well, I think if you kind of want to get a little bit ahead of the agenda, I would do the first one in 1 week. Again, the first and third.
Yeah.
And then I think if you start in July with the town hall, that we would say we would do the town hall, the odd month Saturdays. Every odd month, the first Saturday, the five of y'all and I and any other staff deemed necessary. The police officer will have to be there per the charter. But we just meet in either room 10 or the rotunda for a casual conversation.
Okay. Any other discussion?
On the virtual, I can foresee a need for planning how to recognize people to speak.
I don't believe we're letting anybody speak. It's just the five of y'all and me, is my understanding.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But it will be recorded and placed online to watch.
We're going to invite public participation. Okay.
So do we need a motion or just move forward with consensus?
Do they need a motion?
Well, if we're going to start, next, very soon, I think it'd be useful to have a motion that just approves the parameters, and then we'll follow that up with more specifics. So
Parameters. All right, we're talking about parameters. Entertaining a motion for accepting the parameters of the meetings. How about that one?
So I'm not sure, next Monday being the 16th?
Yeah, you'll be out of town.
It'd be the.
I'll make the motion, but I would like them to be flexible to either providing meeting minutes or being recorded. One or the
I
other.
prefer recording.
Yeah.
Now, sorry.
Okay, so if we start on the 16th, you're suggesting the first and third
First and third Monday, sir, at 4 p.m.
at 4 p.m. And then the second part of that is?
Every odd month, which would be July, the first Saturday of every odd month, the six of us meet in either room 10 or the rotunda.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we use beginning the 16th of June and going forward the first and third Mondays of each month, we have a virtual workshop. And beginning in June, the first Saturday.
July.
July the first Saturday and every other month, every other month going forward, first Saturday, a town hall at City Hall, either in the rotunda or room 10. Times to be determined, or are we going to go ahead and set those now?
I think we talked about having coffee and donuts out, so I would probably say 7:30, 6:30. Just kidding. I think probably 8 o'clock would be the best time on a Saturday morning.
You're talking about a Saturday morning?
That's when I go jogging.
So this ain't gonna work for July, because that'll be the July 5th.
Yeah.
Which is right after Independence Day.
Okay.
So just letting y'all know. And also, I think that Commissioner Street, I want to say legally speaking, the minutes have to be taken.
Yeah, they'll be, we'll make sure minutes are taken.
So transcript of the recording?
Yeah.
No, it won't be a transcript. It'll be just minimal minutes. I mean, you can do AI and have it, but that's not, there'll be minutes.
Okay.
Well, but for, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hughes, but for clarity though, Madam Clerk, you don't come to workshops, correct?
Not typically,
Yeah.
no.
So there are going to be no
what I'm saying.
minutes. It's going to be recorded, and the recording will serve as the minutes in its entirety. That's my understanding.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
There'll be written minutes. I mean, just very brief, minimal written minutes.
A workshop was held.
That's
I will, they will be legally sufficient and will be.
They'll be legally sufficient.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Call the roll.
Do we have a second?
Yes, we do. Granger.
Granger, thank you.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, we are in Commissioner's report.
Nope. You skipped over. Yeah, item 9E was also at your request, Mr. Mayor, regarding amending the actual rules of procedure and the content and items at the city commission meetings. My understanding was, number one, you wanted to consider eliminating any public comments for items not on the agenda for that day, and also requiring them to either be residents of or own a business in the city of Panama City. And I think those were the two big ones. And then you kind of coupled in, instead of taking any comments in regards to the authority of the city of Panama City, have those shifted to the town hall that we just discussed.
Correct. Yeah, we just want to clean up this meeting to be a voting meeting, a business meeting, and all the public comments being pushed either into the agendas items or into emails and town halls and virtual workshops. Any discussion on changing this meeting?
I'd just like to suggest that a Scribner's correction or inclusion, not necessarily a correction, the fourth paragraph under regular special meetings and workshop meetings, it says public comment will be at the discretion of the mayor or the presiding officer of the meeting, and followed by a sentence that says public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. I'd like to suggest adding, if allowed, comma, public comment would be limited to 3 minutes. Just to tie the two thoughts.
Yeah.
Any semicolons?
So after minutes, comma, if allowed?
Semicolon band.
What was that?
No, if allowed, comma, public comment.
If allowed. So at the beginning of the sentence then? Here, if allowed.
These are
public comment.
existing.
These are existing and they're wanting to modify.
Any other discussion?
So I think we do need to get clarity on what we're striking, though, in regards to public comment. I don't know if we need to provide clarity.
Yeah,
Nothing stricken,
Yeah.
just adding the words. The sentence says, public comment will be at the discretion of the mayor or the presiding officer of the meeting, period. Then a sentence says, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes for each person speaking unless the commission, comma, by unanimous votes, comma, wishes to extend the time limit. So it could be understood that it is allowed. So we just show the relationship of the two thoughts, that if allowed, comma, then public comment.
The legal standard is just that if, before the commissioners take action on an item, that the public has an opportunity to comment. And they could comment at the beginning of the meeting, and you could take action at the next meeting, but they have an opportunity to comment. That's the only legal standard on it. I'd like to do research on limiting to only residents. I think that's something I've heard talked about, but I've never actually seen that. So if I could have, look at that a little bit closer.
I wouldn't mind residents or business owners within Panama City too. If that's.
What about property owners?
What are we solving for here, I guess? is the question.
I don't work for people who live in Callaway, that don't have a business here, that don't reside here, that don't have any tie financially to this town.
Okay.
I don't work for them. I work for the 38,000 people that reside here and business here.
And we'd just like to look into that a little bit more.
Could I ask, Mayor, how would you control who comes to the podium? Will you know that they
You
are?
could, I guess you'd have a check-in list or a sign-in sheet, but I'm unfamiliar. I figured some other city would have a.
So I don't disagree with the sentiment, but it's how do you practically police that is, it kind of gets deep into the weeds of maybe, and is the juice worth the squeeze?
Are you talking about just for this meeting too?
Just for the city.
Yeah, so I mean, if somebody wanted to come and talk at one of our workshops or something like that, that would be
Get their address when they get up there sooner.
Yeah, we can just enable staff to do the research and come back to us with their recommendations.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, I don't disagree with the thought. It's just, how do you police it?
Yeah.
It gets really tough to.
That's why I have attorneys.
And if that process takes more than 3 minutes, then what have we gained, if anything?
What process for vetting the speakers?
Yes, in the moment.
Well, that would be done as you walk in. If you want to speak about an agenda item, I would imagine you sign in and some sort of verification happens. I imagine other cities figured this out. If no one's figured this out, I'm not trying to invent new things.
Oh, no, other cities have done it, and then when there's a very potential hot button issue, they found that there can be legal ways to subvert that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of what are you solving for, and when is the juice worth the squeeze of doing something? It's kind of on point now.
Is it worth the research?
Yeah, it's fine. Have them research it, come back and tell us what they think.
Okay. Do we have a motion for them to research something, or do they just consensus they move forward? Okay. Anything else on item 9E?
Well, I mean, I think y'all did, there was consensus to add in front of the last sentence, if allowed, comma, public comments. I think in order to amend your rules and procedures, you would need that.
Commissioner Lucas's changes to the procedures.
Well, we haven't accepted the procedures, so.
Oh, wait a second.
A motion to approve the procedures with the modification that
Second.
Commissioner Lucas.
Call the roll?
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, number 10. Brian Granger, you're up.
Right. So as y'all probably already are aware, Jonathan Hayes, the city manager, his evaluation is coming up and coming due. I don't suggest that we change that necessarily. That's not my goal here. I do think that everybody who works for the people needs an evaluation, and I think all the people that work, all the city workers, that's a process that's absolutely handled through HR, handled all the way down to the individual contributors within the city. And so this was just more of an item of two parts. One is, do we want to change anything that we're looking at with Jonathan? We don't have to decide that this meeting. If you don't want to, we can kind of chew on that one and come back to it. But the other one is to expand evaluations to all city employees, to include the city attorney and the city clerk. So I think that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So that's my discussion. Do y'all have any thoughts on that?
I like the idea.
The end. I like the idea, but I told Jan that I don't necessarily feel qualified today to give a review of Jan or Jonathan or Nevin. And you're gonna hang out with Nevin, but is that you talking on an annual basis?
Yeah, so what I envision it would look like is we would not immediately, I would never ask you, because having been in your seat 2 years ago, you're still absorbing everything. So I would never ask you to provide an evaluation of somebody who has worked for you for all of 2 weeks. But what I would ask is that you provide what your expectations are.
Okay.
Right? You probably feel qualified to do that.
Yes, sir. Very much so.
So, and then come back in a year and say this, you have either met or not met my expectations. That's what I would look for.
Okay.
Yeah, I would never try to push and say, hey, let's immediately assess. No, this would be more of a longer term type thing.
Thanks for that explanation, Laura.
Yeah. So mine is due every July, just already in my contract.
Yes, so then the suggestion I would make would be that that we would provide feedback or provide standards and expectations to the city attorney and the city clerk, and then align the annual review at the same time as Jonathan's, or we can step that out by a month. If it's too much, we can step that out. But if you feel like we can tackle it all, we can do it all in July. I also don't necessarily feel that we need to do a very public review of, hey, you were good or no, you weren't. I feel like that evaluation can stand on its own in public record. So.
I agree with the last part. I don't think there's any reason to do a public spectacle of someone's review. I don't think that was ever a healthy part of the process.
Agreed.
If everyone would be willing to consider to allow new board members the opportunity to kind of get familiar with both the evaluation process as well as the rest, I mean, it may make sense for us to push Jonathan's out this time to say August or September. Would that give you guys adequate time?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Or, and then do it all at the same time, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That's
So
true.
you got,
So, I mean, we have to amend Jonathan's contract?
I think delaying it a few months would be allowable.
No, if we vote on it, I mean,
are we in consensus enough to be able to do that, Nevin?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have the parties to the contract right here. They all said yes. So, but it would be to push it out to August, September. You can be given some form evaluations from the ICMA, if that would be helpful. I mean, forms to go by. And then we could do it at a later time.
Okay. Are you motioning?
Yeah, I'll motion.
What are you motioning?
I'll motion, let's just say September. Does that work?
For what?
everybody? For evaluations of all chartered officers.
Okay, but the first year being just standards and expectations for
Yeah.
the two new ones?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second that.
Call the roll?
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, item 11, city attorney's reports.
This is it's a thick agenda packet, but it'll be a brief report. And it has to do with an update on the proposed charter review process. This came up a few months ago, and the commission voted to pursue looking at establishing a charter review committee. The idea was that the committee would be advisory. They would make a recommendation back to this commission. They would be appointed by this city commission to review our charter. Just a little bit of the history that's included in your agenda pack is that I believe the first charter was 1908 or 1909, and then in 1926 or 7, the three communities of Millville, Panama City, and St. Andrews merged into one. And so we got a new charter, and charters were approved and adopted by the legislature. 1963, there was a new charter, once again adopted by the legislature. Since 1963, we don't see where there's been a review of the charter. Things have changed, though, because home rule came into effect by Florida statute in the early 1970s. So a lot of the things that were in the charter get pulled out and become ordinances. There is an example of a charter review advisory board. We put in Lynn Havens. I thought Lynn Havens was a good example of how you could appoint a committee. It's clearly advisory. They were to meet at least once a month. I believe they had a duration of 1 year. They bring back recommendations. You look at the different staff your staff would be there available to work with the Charter Review Committee and provide them any information that they may want or need. Also, briefly in your memo, it talked about the different forms of government, whether it's a weak mayor or city manager. We have a city manager form of government, and that briefly addressed that. But those are all things that the Charter Review Committee would be looking at. You would be kept advised every step of the way as far as what is happening, what is going on in the charter review meetings. That's your report. Happy to take any input. If you'd like to get the process started, I think it would be useful to come back in July with a detailed resolution on how you establish the committee and some groundwork rules on how to run the committee, and we can proceed ahead.
Okay, so either we love the charter exactly the way it is or move forward with the motion to have brought back to us in July. That's my opinion.
Yeah, so to kind of recap what Nevin said, the charter has not had a review since 1967. It has changed due to state law changing. So I think it's probably ripe for review.
Mm-hmm.
I concur with Commissioner Granger.
Okay.
So you're looking for direction.
Well, it would be, especially the two new members, I think it would be helpful to have a motion to say, come back the first meeting in July with a proposed resolution that establishes the Charter Review Committee and some ground rules. And then then you deliberate on it. You could if you want to, you could go ahead and notice appointments to the Charter Review Committee now, and then maybe in the first meeting of July, approve the resolution. You might be ready to make appointments at that time.
I like that.
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and notice. I mean, this is a needed part of the process, and so.
Notice now so we can go out and start talking about it.
Then I motion that we go ahead and start noticing and that you come back to us in the first meeting of July with a path forward.
Okay. Thank you.
To the second? I'll second that. Call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 12, city manager.
Yes, sir. Item 12A is consideration of resolution number 202-50610.1 to adopt the 2025 Bay County Local Mitigation Strategy Plan, or LMS. As background information, the City of Panama City is required to adopt the Bay County Local Mitigation Strategy Plan to continue participation in the National Flood Insurance Program Community Rating System. Part of this process is for all Bay County municipalities to adopt a resolution accepting, adopting, and approving the 2025 Bay County LMS plan. A copy of the plan will be available at City Hall and on the city's website. Participation in the CRS results in lower premiums for those policyholders located within our city. The following documents are enclosed with this item. Resolution number 202-50610.1, the 2025 Bay County LMS plan, and the Florida DIM approval letter. Staff recommendation through the Director of Development Services and the City Manager's Office is that the Commission approve Resolution 202-50610.1 and adopt the 2025 Bay County LMS plan.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Oh, who's this? Ooh.
He can have it.
Oh, the second was Mr. Hughes. Call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Commission has adopted Resolution 2025-0610.1, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Panama City adopting the 2025 Bay County Local Mitigation Strategy Plan and providing an effective date.
Item 12B is consideration of approval to enter into a 15-year lease agreement with Leasing 2 Incorporated to purchase a 107-foot Pierce aerial ladder truck for the Panama City Fire Department in the amount of $1,907,008.00, an associated equipment proposal with 108 Fire and Safety LLC to secure the proposed apparatus, and approve Resolution 202-50610.2. This is a date certain item brought back from the last commission meeting. Relevant background information is enclosed. Staff recommendation through the fire chief is that we commission approve entering into a lease agreement with Leasing 2 Incorporated in the amount of $1,907,008.00 for the purchase of a 107-foot Pierce aerial ladder truck under a 15-year lease and associated equipment proposal with 108 Fire Safety LLC to secure the proposed apparatus. I did have some additional questions that some of you and your colleagues asked, Mr. Mayor. Number one, regarding the NFPA standards that drive this. The NFPA is the National Fire Protection Association. Standards and codes are widely recognized as the leading resources for fire, electrical, and life safety guidelines and requirements. These documents, developed by experts from around the world, aim to minimize the risk and effects of fire, establishing criteria for design, installation, and maintenance of various fire protection systems. The ISO is the International Organization for Standardization. Both the ISO and the NFA play a part on our ISO rating and the requirements to have a number of fire apparatuses in our city. ISO is the one that has more of an impact because it does have an impact on our insurance rates. The ISO is rated on a scale of 0 to 105. Our last evaluation in 2022 was an 81.2, which is right at the threshold of being an ISO level 3, which is 70 to 79. Credit for ladder companies total 4 points, and with 2 ladder trucks, we scored a 2.71 in this area. Specifically, NFPA 1710 deals with minimum staffing in response with engines and ladders. We currently do not meet this requirement, but we're very close. The rate, also the interest rate was asked. The interest rate is 5.16%, is for the full 15 years, which is on the lease proposal. There is a sample agreement that's attached, which does not reflect this yet. However, if the commission does approve, the leasing company will draft a proposal which will reflect the 5.16% interest rate. We also confirmed there was no prepayment penalty, and the question was asked, how many structures do we have in the city that are over 3 stories? There are 120 commercial structures that are over 3 stories. That does not include any residential structure. That's all the information for your consideration, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a motion?
Nothing's really changed since the last time we discussed this. I know we had talked about potentially finding property sales to do this rather than obligating ourselves to 15 years of fire assessment. So I think at this point in time, until there is maybe a different proposal, either with grant funding or through the sale of surplus property, I would motion to just deny.
I'll second that. But I'd like to talk about it. That's what I'm saying.
Hey,
That's what I'm seconding. I want to talk about it.
no, we just let it die.
Yeah.
There's no, yeah.
Okay.
And then she gets us to discussion.
Unless anybody wants to discuss anything further.
I do. So you brought up the interest rate. I'm concerned that the interest rate statement, that statement contradicts what the proposal says, is that it's not set until after full credit checks and full funding from the leasing company. So that's after we sign the proposal. It also says in here that the pricing is subject to change as follows. Once the chassis is delivered, we won't know the full price of the 1.821. In any pricing in my world only goes up, it never goes down. And so I'm concerned about that we would have a signed proposal and have two opportunities for change in either interest rate or price. And for that reason, I can't support something that I'm not even to a contract and the documents don't take care of the taxpayer money.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I think that I agree with the idea that if this was funded another way, that I would be able to vote for it. I'm kind of surprised that it came back as just the same funding.
I think you had to bring it back.
Yeah, I had to bring it back. I mean, I know that Madam Clerk, I think, had a conversation maybe with our banker, but I don't know if they circled back with any other options. I know there were some concerns about potentially committing, like, property sales, because, I mean, that's a timeline unknown and other specifics to that, so.
I mean, I would still like the staff to continue working forward to the replacement. I think maybe we can get port security grant, something like that. Like, let's try to find other avenues too.
And that's what we'll do, Commissioner.
So no vote needed. Moving on to 12B.
I believe there was a motion to.
Well, there was a motion, but that's a negative motion.
I'll withdraw my motion.
That's like a negative motion. Yeah. All right, so we're withdrawing the motion.
All right, item 12C is consideration to approve budget amendment 2025-0610.4 to transfer auction proceeds in the amount of $42,940.00 to be used for police equipment. This background information: through public auction, the Panama City Police Department recently sold 10 police vehicles. The funds from the sale will be used for police equipment. Staff recommendations of the Chief of Police is the Commission approve this request.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Nevin?
I'd like to read the resolution for that, the title, and it's Budget Amendment 2025-0610.4. And the title is a resolution providing for the amendment of the approved fiscal year 24-25 budget to utilize auction proceeds to purchase police equipment.
Item 12D is consideration to approve budget amendment resolution 2025-0610.5 in the amount of $5,544.00 and modify the previously signed agreement to match total funds committed by the city. As background information, it was determined by the FDOT that there was a typographical error in their original agreement related to the amount committed by the city in the amount of $5,544.00. The Public Works Department is requesting approval to modify the signed contract, grant that authority to the city manager for the additional funds and update the project amount to $449,944.00. This is specifically for the Tarpon Dock Bridge leading into the cove from downtown Panama City. Staff recommendation to the Public Works Director is that the Commission approve this request.
If the commission does approve it, the adoption of the resolution would also include approval of signing the new contract. The actual contract will be supplied, but you can see a markup where the changes are.
Motion to approve the resolution and the contract signing.
Who was that?
Ms. Lucas.
Okay.
Call the roll?
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas,
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Commissioner Street.
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Commission has adopted Resolution 2020-50610.5, a resolution providing for the amendment of the approved fiscal year 24-25 budget to utilize infrastructure surtax funds as a grant match.
Item 12E was moved to June 24th, so moving on to item 12F. Item 12F is consideration to approve Dewberry Engineers Incorporated task order for CDBG-DR, which is Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery, Project Restore Glenwood CEI Services, not to exceed the amount of $359,840.00. Relevant background information is enclosed regarding this large infrastructure project in East Panama City. Staff recommendation through the Director of Public Works is that the Commission approve this request. I will just add on, Commissioner Hughes had a question about this. The grant requires CEI over this project, and the grant also goes further and pays for the CEI of this particular project. So again, staff recommendation to the Director of Public Works is the Commission approve this request.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any
And,
discussion?
yeah, for the edification of the new board members and the public at large. Jonathan, can you give us a quick summary of where CDBG-DR monies can be used?
Sure. So CDBG-DR is Community Development Block Grant specifically for disaster recovery. We're recovering from both Hurricane Michael and Hurricane Sally. These funds are targeted and limited to what we call LMI areas, low to moderate income. And so those areas are determined through HUD, Housing and Urban Development. That's ultimately where this funding comes from. And it comes through through Tallahassee, through the Department of Commerce. They're the ones that kind of execute that and manage that particular grant with the municipalities and counties around the state on behalf of the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So they're very limited as where the money can be used.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
And again, they require this, the CEI, especially with underground utilities where it's not like a structure where you can kind of go in after and kind of see where things ended up. We want to have as-built, which kind of shows exactly what was put in the ground and update in our GIS system so that folks that are sitting in my chair or Mr. Murphy's chair in 10 years, we know where those things are out in the field. It's been one of our challenges on top of the city, kind of going 40 plus years without really investing in our infrastructure. We also, and Commissioner Granger is living this in a very brutal fashion inside of his ward in Venetian Villa. There's just all sorts of underground utilities that we're hitting, even with Florida Power and Light, that just no one had real records of. So it's a real challenge. So this is someone that is there directly on behalf of the city and our project every day, kind of just not really supervising, but monitoring and kind of keeping a record and working with the project manager over this particular project. I will state that we do have an in-house CEI team. However, we'd like to use those staffers for like most of the state revolving fund because that is an actual loan of which a percentage we're going to be required to pay back. But when you have a fully funded CDBG-DR grant like this that does require the CEI and they're willing to pay for it, it makes sense to allow an outside engineer, in this case the design engineer, function in that role on behalf of the city and utilize our in-house staff for some of our projects and also projects where we're utilizing a loan in order to minimize what we have to borrow.
Thank you.
Sufficient, sir?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And is it typical that the design engineer is the CEI engineer in the grants?
Absolutely, because no one is more intimately aware of that project than the engineer that designed it.
Okay.
So it's not always the case, but it is usually the case.
Okay.
And it is an industry best practice.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Commissioner Street.
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 12G is consideration and approval to purchase properties of the Voluntary Home Buyout Program for Hurricane Sally and authorization for the city manager to execute those contracts. As background information, on January 24th, 2023, the Department of Economic Opportunity, or DEO, announced funding for the Voluntary Home Buyout Program for both for Hurricane Sally, and the City of Panama City then approved and subsequently signed the subrecipient agreement on December 18th of 2023. Relevant background information on the purpose of the voluntary home buyout program is enclosed in your packet. Staff recommends the commission approve executing the purchase and sale contracts for the parcels, parties, and amounts identified by the city attorney's letter that is attached in your packet here today. The purchase and sales contracts will be consistent with the form contract also attached to the city attorney's letter. The purchase and sales contracts are subject to final approval by the DEO, and this would authorize the city manager to sign these contracts. Mr. Mayor?
Any motion?
Motion to approve, and I'd also like to make a comment.
Second.
So this represents the last of some of the most frequently flooded homes in the city. And so working between Hurricane Michael funding with voluntary home bailout and now with Hurricane Sally funding, this represents a significant step forward for a lot of families and property owners that had been dealing with flooding for decades beyond just those hurricanes. And so I'm excited for the families that have been patient through this. I mean, every single name on this, like I know who they are, where they're at, and have been to their home. And so it's incredible to watch that. And so looking forward to their next chapter and hopefully them finding a new place to live in the city of Panama City and utilizing the relocation funds that are available with the program too. So.
Yep, very rarely does this city municipal government have an opportunity to literally change somebody's life, and this is, I absolutely think this is one of them. Talking with some of the people on this list, where their homes have flooded 6 times, and having that fear when it's raining very, very hard, and they're just watching the water just kind of creep up to the house, and is this going to be another time? Is something that I hope that nobody else in Panama City ever has to deal with. But thankful to the state for having this program that will fund this and allow us to get these people, market value for their homes, which otherwise they would never be able to get. You can't sell a home that's been flooded 6 times. Nobody's going to buy it, and allow these folks to move on and put this behind them. So I think it's awesome. I really do. And thank you for working on this. Thank you to staff. So.
I was in the home of, next to the one on 7th Court, not the one on our list, but just curious as to whether that home was approached, or were all the homes on 7th Court approached, had the opportunity? Because in this home next to the one that we're approving today, the sewage was backed up into the bathtub, the shower in the homes of this 90-year-old woman. So,
Do you have that exact address? We'll have to check on it.
okay, I can pull
It
that.
maybe not stated publicly. If you want to give that to myself, we'll look into it, ma'am.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
All right, we have first and a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
And just FYI, this is Jennifer Aldridge, Disaster Recovery Project Manager. I'm also the project manager for this project. We still have available funds if we want to purchase any more properties that are having flooding issues. So we've been trying to get the word out. So if you know of any more flooding issues, repetitive loss flooding, we still have time to work on this.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, might I suggest a short restroom break before the next item? It's going to be a little long, I think, maybe?
Sure.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion to adjourn?
No, you can just call it recess.
We're taking a 10-minute recess.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 10-minute recess. We're going to make it 2 hours.
Back in the meeting.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Item 12H is a financial and budget presentation and then a time of discussion led by Jeanette Smith, our clerk, and myself. We have a presentation prepared and then would appreciate some feedback from the commissioners. We're prepared to enter into kind of high gear with our budget process. So Ms. Smith will begin and then I will take over through the presentation. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We just wanted to give I just wanted to give a kind of a high-level introduction to what governmental accounting and the financial statements So you'll have some ideas about, especially for the new guys, how these financial reports work. I present them every month. So next slide, please. Some concepts about governmental accounting. If you think about a local government as a conglomerate, such as Yum Brands, you've got KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell. Well, those are all fast food chains. General Mills, you got some variation there. They got Betty Crocker, Cheerios, Old El Paso, Pillsbury, plus more and more and more. But they're all kind of food related. Maybe better examples, Berkshire Hathaway, where they have Fruit of the Loom, they have Dairy Queen, Duracell, Geico, many, many more. Those are more diverse companies. That's more similar to what a local government is. Each of these subsidiaries operate semi-autonomously, but they're ultimately controlled by the parent company. So if you think about Panama City being the parent company, then the city commission really is controlling the parent company, in control of the parent company. The city manager, you can think of him as the operations or the different brands that were mentioned above. Those are funds and departments of the city. As far as the city clerk, I'm responsible for accounting, official records, and cash collections citywide. The city attorney is legal and contractual for all funds. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about the city brands. And I realize trademark probably should have been at the top, but maybe it's a good thing it's at the bottom because it's really not a trademark. Anyway, next slide, please. So the blue box is the general fund. So these are going to be our brands. The city commission, the city manager, city attorney, the clerk, budget office, purchasing, human resources, logistics, land use, public works, facility maintenance, the police department, fire department, parks, culture and recreation, and some other miscellaneous funds or divisions and departments within the general fund. The brown boxes are internal service funds. That includes the infrastructure surtax fund, the community redevelopment agency, the city SHIP fund, the housing and community services fund. Then the green box is the debt service funds. There are 5 series there, 2013B, 2016, 2018, the infrastructure surtax 2018 series, and the 2023 series. The red boxes are the proprietary funds. Proprietary funds are supposed to be self-sustaining. So we have the utilities fund, water, wastewater, underground utilities and lift stations, the environmental services fund, the marinas fund, the St. Andrews Marina and downtown marina share in the fund, and the equipment maintenance fund is an internal service fund. So the purple fund is supported by other funds inside the city. And then off to the right there, you have a little gray box. These are funds that are not annually budgeted typically. So you have grant funds, including the FEMA funds, capital projects funds, pension funds, and self-insurance funds. So these are for the most part, besides the pension funds, they're budgeted by project. So the length of the project is the budget period, not an annual budget, but a budget period for the length of the project or the grant deadline. Those are the budget terms. They're not annually. So next slide, please. So let's talk about the color of all that money on the previous page. Next slide, please. So the blue box, the general fund, for the most part, it is unrestricted funds coming from taxes, property taxes, gas taxes, utility taxes, communication service fees, franchise fees, state revenue sharing, charges for services, investment income, license and permits, fines and forfeitures, transfers from other funds, fire assessments. So some of those funds are restricted forfeitures that we get from the Department of Justice, Department of Treasury. The fire service assessments strictly prohibited from being spent on anything but the fire department. So there are some restrictions, but for the most part, unrestricted funds in the general fund. So the internal service funds, these are all restricted funds. Infrastructure surtax fund is funded by the infrastructure surtax, and it is limited to infrastructure projects. The CRAs are funded by tax increment financing from the city and from Bay County. They also get their revenue from investments and grants. All of their funding is restricted to CRA, the area of the CRA. City SHIP and Housing and Community Services, those funds are restricted. Those are CDBG and SHIP funds, so the grants are restricted for what they can be used for. They have a plan that they have to develop and use the money according to the plan. Debt service funds, the funding sources for that is from transfers and investment income. Those are strictly to pay the debt service on all those 5 debt service funds that I mentioned previously. Utilities fund, environmental services fund, and marinas funds. Like I said, they should be primarily funded by charges for services, by user fees. They should be self-sustaining. The utilities fund also collects impact fees, and they have loans and grants, and the marinas funds, the user charges on both of the marinas. The equipment maintenance fund, again, is internal service and is funded by, so let me go back to the proprietary funds. Utilities fund is restricted for use in the utilities fund. The marinas fund is restricted for use in the marinas. The environmental services fund is actually not funded by user charges. It's more of an assessment. So those funds in the environmental services fund are unrestricted. The equipment maintenance fund is internal service fund. That's unrestricted because it's coming from the other funds of the department. They're funded by transfers from the user departments. Obviously, the grant funds and the FEMA funds are restricted for the projects that they were issued for. Capital project funds are funded by other sources, so most of those funds are restricted. Pension funds, obviously restricted. And next slide, please. So the cost of doing business for all the colors of the different money. Next slide, please. This is the amended budget, the 2025 amended budget. This is what your financial report is based on. Total for personnel services is, personal services are wages, overtime, insurance, taxes, that kind of thing. That's $56.5 million. This is for all of the funds that are reported on your monthly financial statement. Operating expenses such as fuel, repair, uniforms, utilities, office supplies, that's about almost 48 million. Capital outlay, that's operating capital, so those are not part of the capital projects funds. These come from our operating funds, vehicles, buildings, roads, lift stations, debt services, leases, loans, bonds, 31 million. And then interfund transfers are made primarily for debt service and for administrative fees of 6.6 million. So total expenses across all these funds is just over 169 million. Total revenues are 139 million. So the gap there is filled with budgeted reserves. So we're budgeting our reserve, we're appropriating our reserves to fill the gap in our budget of $29.8 million. For many of the funds, that's a requirement. The total 12.3 million is required budgeted reserves from the CRA, the infrastructure surtax, CDBG, and SHIP. All of those funds require the reserves to be rolled forward into the next fiscal year if they're not spent, or they have to be returned to the granting agency technically. So we obviously roll them forward into the next budget year. You're not allowed to accumulate them. The remaining 17.5 million in reserves is discretionary use. So that is where this commission can make the most impact on next year's budget. So the financial statement report that you have in your packet, there were no real significant issues that have popped up since last month. You still have your general fund balance report that we are still, behind schedule on our reserves for fiscal year 2025. That hasn't changed significantly either. And I don't know if you want me to take questions now, Mr. Manager, or move forward with the presentation?
So we'll just plow on and then we'll take questions and deliberation. And thank you,
Okay.
Madam Clerk. All right, next slide. All right, this is just an overview of the city's budget and kind of the timeline and process. Again, more for the new guys. Next slide. So this is just a quick, organizational chart of kind of where, the different departments and operationally how we are structured as a city. Next slide. Format of the budget book. Again, the budget is organized by fund accounting. We have the general fund, which checks revenues and expenses such as taxes and permits. We have the special revenue fund, receives funds from a specific source such as grants and other government programs, and it is restricted according to the grant or program guidelines. Debt service funds, we track long-term debt. Enterprise fund generates its own revenues to cover its expenses, such as our solid waste division as an example. And then an internal service fund, this type of fund receives revenue from other funds by providing a service to the city by the city. Funds by department, you have the general fund, and then you have all the other funds that meet in there as well. And you just kind of see just a screenshot of kind of where we fall in regards to breaking down the different funds. Next slide. So the color of money, again, our 2025 general revenue fund is recurring revenue of $62,719.70. $733. Go back to the previous slide if you don't mind. So this is that kind of breakdown of the 2025 adopted budget by fund. Again, the general fund was funded at 91% by recurring operating revenues and the 9% or $6.1 million from reserves. This is general funds and other funds with non-ad valorem revenues. Reserve usage was $1.3 million for committed capital, $2.9 million for debt, the interest expense from our $150 million loan, $739,000 in operating capital, and then another $1 million in reserves were used for the fire assessment reduction. That's the total of the $6.1 million in the reserve usage. All right, next slide, back to the other one. Thank you. Again, general fund uses for general government, and you have kind of a legend there, and obviously the bulk of our expenses, almost half are for public safety between fire and police. The legend is there. I'll just point out a couple of things here. You've got the general government at 14 million, public safeties at almost 33 million, transportation at 6.5, economic environment at 2.2, culture and recreation at 5.3, physical environment, enterprise funded, human services 360,000, and then internal services, other financing uses 6.9 million. I'll just point out though, under the general fund expenses, personnel is about 61% of the general fund. And so I think that was, something that the clerk has pointed out in the past as well, that it is the staff. All right, next slide. So just kind of a timeline on where we're at. So on July 24th at 4 p.m., we have a planned budget workshop where y'all will set the proposed millage rate. That will be a cap for both the city and the Downtown Improvement Board. And then September 9th at 5:01 p.m., we'll have the first public hearing where you will set the tentative millage rate. And then September 23rd at 5:01 p.m., you'll have the second and final public hearing to set the final millage rate. And again, we will have to coordinate with the county and the school board to schedule the exact times of the meetings according to the truth and millage process. The city cannot conflict with both the county and the school board as they adopt their millage rates. Citizens have to be able to go and be able to go in person to each of those if they so desire. Next slide. So July 24th, specifically the first budget workshop, the final budget workshop, staff will present a proposed budget. We'll suggest funding strategies, and the commission would be required at the budget workshop to set a proposed millage rate cap no later than August 4th. Once the proposed millage rate, the cap is set, it can be lowered. However, it becomes extremely difficult to raise the millage rate after it's set. So that'll be at our July 24th budget workshop. Next slide. Moving into September, which will be the actual budget hearings, we'll set a tentative millage rate for the city and the Downtown Improvement Board and approve tentative budgets. This will be the last opportunity for request and for budget changes. We'll adopt a final millage rate for both the city and the DIB and adopt the final budgets. Again, staff will coordinate with the county and the school board to schedule the meetings. We cannot conflict with them. So basically, the meetings may not be on the second and the fourth Tuesday of those months. And then just as a refresher, Jerome, if you would put up that slide that I had sent earlier from the strategic priorities and pre-budget workshop, the single blue page that I emailed this morning. We did have back on February 20th, I don't know if you can make, there you go. We did kind of have a pre-budget workshop and kind of getting some feedback. And I know that the three existing members of the commission, received this earlier. I did forward it to both Commissioner Hughes and Mayor Branch after they won their elections to kind of flag this for them. But these were the priorities that were received from the citizens as we held this, priorities and pre-budget workshop back at City Hall. Obviously, infrastructure is one that remains, forefront in people's minds and desires. Staffing and operations, marinas. People are very passionate about getting the downtown marina back open again and the promenade all the way around it. And then obviously parking remains a challenge in both St. Andrews and downtown Panama City, more of a challenge in St. Andrews. And then also Parks and Rec. We have a lot of parks. We have 60 parks approximately, and we got cities that are twice our size that have half as many. And so managing those can be difficult at times. I'm happy that we're moving forward with the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. So, and then obviously communication is something that I know that the mayor and I've spoke a lot about, kind of beefing out the operation. So we will be working with the city manager's office and specifically Ms. Kennedy on kind of building that team up as we move into fiscal year 2026. But again, the clerk and I and the staff just wanted to kind of lay out the process and the timeline for y'all and kind of, over the next 90 to 100 days and how that will play out. And really just kind of answer any preliminary questions y'all want to have today. I've had a lot of one-off conversations with each of you, and y'all each have some unique and passionate perspectives on the budget and where we should focus moving forward. So I'd really like to maybe just take a few moments, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, to kind of get some feedback from y'all on, are there things that the city is doing that you don't think we should be doing? Are there things we're not doing that you think we should be? And kind of where we can kind of focus this as we prepare to finalize the budget in preparation for presenting it formally at the end of July.
Yeah, I'll start. I love the presentation, Ms. Smith. I'd love to see that presentation, either the recording from this meeting or new recording on the website and even a Facebook post.
That can be done, sir.
I love that. And then, one of my big campaign initiatives was benchmarking. In the restaurant industry, every industry I'm in, there's benchmarks. And I actually linked you to a few benchmarking from other cities, Groveland being one, of comparing themselves, every service to other entities that are similar, saying here's what, and Keith Medford did a great job of that in the budgetary meeting from last year, which is how we know we have a lot of parks, by comparing ourselves to other people. And so this is a lot of money. I mean, that's a ton of money we saw on the screen. And unless we are comparing ourselves to other people, we're just kind of guessing at what we think we need. And I'd like to see budgetary meetings that explain to the public too, that we're not making up things. This is what other cities are doing, not justifying spending, but looking at how other cities are spending money effectively.
And I'll just add, I have, based on our last conversation, I have connected with 5 or 6 cities. I kind of reached out to the Florida League of Cities to say, hey, can you identify, a handful of cities that are very similar to us in size? It's challenging in the sense that, we are a coastal community. We have responsibility for infrastructure, for police and fire at both a port and a satellite port, and then an IDC, as well as we have 2 marinas. And so that creates an element that's very unique to Panama City. But I am working through that. I've connected with 3 of those cities, and I hope to have that kind of buttoned up by the end of this week on a few questions. Ma'am?
Which of those cities?
So one of them is Groveland, one of them is Dania Beach. I'm trying to think. North Lauderdale is one. I'm trying to think, there's a couple, a lot of them are kind of down in the central and South Florida area. You know, I obviously was trying to find some, I mean, they did mention Pensacola, but, you know, Pensacola doesn't really have a port that they're responsible for. So that's a different element that we do have a responsibility. And that does bring us a lot of grant money for providing both infrastructure and then, you know, fire protection for the port, both from land and from the water. And so I'll circulate those. There's a couple of them. I've got them on a notepad on my desk, Commissioner Lucas.
So I'll say that from a strictly financial standpoint, Jan should be able to provide you with normative metrics of whether or not a city is performing well. I forget the exact term for that. Can you help me out there?
Yeah, I know exactly.
Put you on the spot, right?
The spreadsheet that you're talking about.
But
it's issued by the state of Florida, and you can benchmark against all cities based on whether you have governmental funds, governmental and proprietary funds, your population, and some other metrics. You can compare yourself with other.
And I would caution, don't just use those and say, oh, we're off here, we're off there, because again, it is the entire state of Florida, and most cities don't have a marina, let alone two, just as an example. So, but it can let you know when you're getting into kind of the red zones or the really green zones, you know, when you're looking at comparatively.
So if we were to take both marinas and the partnership that we have with, say, St. Andrews so far, that money that we would spend, we're going to take that out of the budget.
I mean, potentially. So we owe some money with the St. Andrews Marina as part of that agreement. We have the responsibility to pay for the bulkheads, I believe up to 12.9 million, correct, Madam Clerk?
Exactly.
So, you know, we got to be mindful of that.
That's already been budgeted. That was before us.
Well, yes, but I mean,
Going
that's still,
forward,
yeah.
There's about, let's just say there's about $2.5 million a year that would be budgeted for slip maintenance that they're going to take over. What do we do with that money? How does that come back in?
I mean, that would be for us to determine, I mean, as we desire. Let me give a specific example. So specifically, a couple of you would like to see increased spending in Parks and Rec, but for maintenance, not necessarily for the arts. I'd like to get a consensus on that. I do believe we need to increase our Parks and Recs budget, but I want to do it in a fashion that this commission would support. So is there support to increase the budget and shift resources from other departments to Parks and Rec so that Mr. Mefford and his team have the resources they need to raise the level of our parks, the ones that we have that we do struggle to maintain with? Is there support for that? I'd like to see that, but I don't want to spend a lot of time and energy to move that forward and kind of build up that hope and expectation only to be told no in July. So
I'd like to see anything that improves the quality, the beautification that we can do, not just in parks, but across the board. Medians, side, right of ways, things that are in the visual all the time. Yes, sir.
Okay.
We also have an obligation as we bring on the Martin Luther King Recreation Center to operate that at a standard that we've set the expectation for. And I think our survey that we're doing now for our operations will give us the indication of what our citizens would like to see us operating. I mean, it's a cool $20 million building to get in, but it's also a cool money to run it on an annual basis.
And Commissioner Hughes, I didn't finish answering your question. I think, you know, I'm optimistic. I think Mr. Zimmerman's optimistic with the city marina partners and kind of moving that forward for the downtown marina. We'll hope to kind of have that, you know, in a good place in the next 30 days is our goal. But I don't know what the final, you know, I don't know what the downtown marina is going to look like long term. So that's kind of an unknown right now.
My point is that in the St. Andrews Marina, there was a budget of, it ended up being about $2.5 million for the operation of that marina for 27 slips.
Brandy, you want to add anything to that, ma'am?
And with that, if we're going to partner with somebody, we're going to take that money back. That's going to help our reserves.
Well, we have to pay off the debt first, so that's what Jonathan was alluding to. We have 12.9 million issued debt for the bulkheads.
But don't we have that money?
No, it's a loan.
It was voted to fund that out of our $150 million line of credit that we do, or our loan that we currently do have. So we do have that money to pay for it, but then we will have to turn that into long-term debt that will need to be funded by the general fund, or the marina if the money's there. You know, if the agreement we made with St. Sam, you know, at some point they will give some money, some of their revenues to us, but we do not think it will be enough to cover the debt payment on that 12.9 million for a while. Is that correct, Jan? Yeah.
Yes.
Can I offer a suggestion? So it's two things. I think, Jan, before you post your report, there needs to be further clarity on, you've got expenses at 169 million, then you've got revenue at 139. That is going to be way misinterpreted if we don't get some further data points behind what that 30 million
It's already got to be
is. Yeah, so just to create clarity, because you gave an explanation after you said it, but visually, it looks like we're spending $30 million that we don't have. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
So if we can just clarify that, that would be very helpful. And Jonathan, if you'll send us the presentation slides, because I hadn't seen those until today. But before we get into prioritization or anything else like that, the first thing that you have to start with in a budget, in my opinion, is a budget that doesn't rely on reserves to balance itself. And so until manager's office and department heads provide us with a budget that is balanced without relying on reserves, there's really not a way for us to prioritize, because we don't know where these cuts are coming from and where your team is going to offer them to offset the reserve amount that we spent this year. And so what I would like to see is, I'd like to see what my goal was in February when we had this conversation, was to get us to the point that by now we would have had a balanced budget, not relying on reserves, so that we could then go into the prioritization conversations of like, hey, we really don't like where you took these cuts from. We need you to go back and we need you to figure out a different way to do this. Or it would have been an aspect of where, hey, let's look at other cities to see if we're in that right category with the budget that's been presented. But there's really not, we can talk about MLK, we can talk about Parks and Rec's prioritization, but there is a gap between what we've used in reserve funding and what is approved in the budget and expenditures. Yes, it is balanced, but what we need to see first is a budget that does not rely on reserves to balance itself. And I think that is what the clerk has been communicating to us on a consistent basis. We are fine going through this year. Like, there is nobody that's going to do without a paycheck or anything else like that. But going in next year, we don't have the reserve margin that we had going into this year. And so the first step is to create a budget that doesn't rely on reserve to offset itself. The second step from that is going to be creating a plan to replenish reserves that have been depleted this year. And then the third step from that point is to talk about our prioritization as far as in what we want to see. So, because it'd be very easy for me to say, this is my priority, this is what I want to do. But until we have a budget that actually balances without reserve funding, there's really not a whole lot for us to provide, Jonathan. And so that's the piece where I don't want to wait until July to do that. And so there needs to be something between now and July that your team goes back and in their presentations department-wide, they realize there's a, what was it, $7-8 million? How much is it, Jan?
For the general fund?
For the general fund that we're relying on reserves. Let's just, let's
About
start with
8.3 million.
About 8.3 million. So we need to see a budget that reflects an $8.3 million decrease from where we are right now. Like, that's, unless you guys have got some other option. Now, I'm willing to consider property sales and things like that to help offset those things, but we have to start with a balanced budget, and that means not utilizing reserves.
And that's for the fiscal year 25 amended where we're at. So you want to see us balance fiscal year 25's budget with it and 27? Okay.
Well, no. I mean, I think what we've committed to this year, to the point on bulkheads or whatever it is, we've made commitments. I mean, like that's not what this is about. But starting in 26, we can't rely on reserves in the way that we relied on them this year. And so that's where we've got to see something that balances that. And trust me, guys, I know that that's a tough task. And so I fully expect that, hey, look, we're going to have some difficult conversations over that. I'm willing to be in those conversations and to help. And I think everybody from this board is willing to do the same. But until we know, like, hey, I've got this you got $8 million you got to find. I need to know where you're going to come, where the team is seeing that $8 million come from so that we can help direct and guide.
But also, we're in a posture that I think this commission helped to create with some of the decisions that we've made going forward, like what we just talked about, knowingly saying we're going to add $12.9 million over the long term. And so to get there from here, if my recollection serves me, we talked about that it was going to be painful until we get the $150 million paid off. And last year, what was put before us was ways to cut $5 million from the budget. And we moved some stuff here, moved some stuff there. But to do what we're talking about doing now, because when you look back at our budgets for the past several years prior to, I know Brian and I coming on board, there's been a deficit that's been caught up with reserve. And so where we are now, Madam Clerk, if I'm correct, we're at the end of that road.
That's correct.
And so we have to take some hard stance at a time when the cost of everything is just going up.
I think too, I mean, this is, and Nevin and Jan both know that I've had conversations with them too, is like, Jan, we've got to find a way to restructure debt. We do. And if that means the 12.9 doesn't need to go to, to the line, we need to go ahead and look at long-term, whatever it is to reduce the cost that we need to. And I know Nevin's going to be bringing forward a retainer agreement as well. And so like, this is not limited to anyone. I mean, every single person has to work together. The good news is that I think we can do this. The bad news is like, yeah, we got to do it. So I'd love to be talking about beautification projects everywhere, but that's not the reality. Let's start with what we need to start with, and where we need to start is reserves do not need to be accounted for in the budget presentation going into this year. So.
This conversation started with Jonathan asking, what should we not be doing? That was the question, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And I think your policy directors, which is what we are at too high of a level to really tell you that, right? We're not in the day-to-day. And I'm going to pick on Keith, and this is just an example. Keith and I were talking about wildflowers and mowing. And he said, I'd love to not mow so much of the garden club and do a wildflower area to reduce some of the cost. And so that's really what I would encourage. I would go to every department head and say, what should we do more of? What should we do less of? And let them come back with the dials that we vote on turning. Because we're just not, I can't tell you how many lawnmowers we have or how often things are cut. We're not in the day-to-day like that.
I think to your point, Alan, is if you rely on us as policy directors to do it, it's going to be very messy. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be super messy because you may have a consensus of 5 people that we just don't care about something. Yeah. So I think the healthiest part of this process is exactly what Alan's saying is department heads, you hear, and I think I hear a consensus from all of us on the dais is balance your budget without reserves and let's start the conversation there. And if that's the case, then yeah, you guys you gotta come. But I don't think you want us to take the first swag at it.
No. Well, I think, and adding this too, I think that every department head should have mentors in other cities. That's what we've reached out to Pensacola, and part of benchmarking is seeing who spends the least on a service. And you don't go to them to find the world's worst service and the world's worst park system in the state. You go, how are you getting the service so affordably? And then you make a judgment call of maybe they figured something out. Maybe there's a blending of a department. Maybe they're just mowing something differently that we're unaware of. But I have mentors in everything that I do, and because I don't have all the answers. And so I would strongly advocate for department heads finding other cities, not who spend the most, but who spend the least. And we're not going to copy who spends the least. We're just going to ask them questions of how they're doing that, and cherry picking little things from them and bringing it back to the city. To find ways to spend a little bit less money.
All sounds great, and this is really good. I think one of the big key components, I think Commissioner Street alluded to that, and that is, this debt service that we have. And that's not, I can propose, I can suggest that, but that's.
Jan and Nevin, you guys are both to work in congruence to find solutions to these issues.
I would like to just put that into a little bit of perspective. We have $261 million worth of projects budgeted to use this $150 million loan for. So far, we have spent $67.2 million of that on projects. That's only 26% through projects that need to be funded by this loan. So there's still 75% of that money that's going to have to be turned over to finish all these projects. Unless you're looking at canceling some of the projects, I don't see how we can cancel any of the loan.
No, Jan, what I'm looking for is the aspects of the 12.9. Like that's what we committed to in short term. Maybe we need to look long term on that so that we can reduce the debt service costs. I'm looking for what we have available in insurance proceeds. Maybe that needs to go and be credited to the debt service so that we can reduce that amount so that we can reduce the amount of loan that we have. Like those are the type of solutions that I'm looking for, is looking at what's available and trying to create one that's not, because I can tell you this, having looked at Jonathan's and them's budget from the city manager's office, to create $8 million worth of cuts in a single year is definitely something that everybody would feel. What I would feel more comfortable with, I think that they would feel more comfortable with, is a $4 million number, or maybe a $5 million number. I think those are more realistic, but that's where you guys have got to work together to come to something. And I mean, we're counting on you guys to do it. I understand your point from you've got to have the revolving and turn, but we've also got to look at every option that's available to us to try to create more margin.
Right, so I still have unfunded FEMA expenditures that will be used, the insurance proceeds will be used against. We haven't cleared all those non-reimbursable funding sources yet. So there's still more coming. We're down to 17.6 million in insurance. That insurance reserve was going to be used to pay down the debt, the $24.5 million. Right. So who knows, I may need it to spend through these $261 million worth of projects. It's a magic trick.
Well, that's why you said that's it.
And I think I just feel like it's too premature to try to do anything with the loan at this point. I really honestly do. If I was any farther down the road than 26% through these projects, then maybe we could have a conversation if we were closer to 50%. But at this point, we're at 26% through the projects that the loan is funding.
I have a question. How much is we're servicing 150 million in debt.
Mm-hmm.
What's that annual?
8.7 million, I think.
And we're using how much of that right now?
Right now I have drawn 87.8, no, 87.8 is what is left. No, 97.1, yeah. I have drawn about 65 million from it.
Okay.
Plus No, that's including the 24 and a half.
And that 150 million went and got invested.
Correct.
And what do we make from that annually?
I have made over the year and a half, 9.3 million. So the first year of earnings is paid, the first interest year is paid for with the earnings on the debt.
Okay.
The
And is that
second
going to
year,
be placed back into reserves, or where's that exactly staying now?
Where's that money?
it's in the debt service fund,
Okay.
paid for the debt, first year of interest. The second year was allocated out to all the funds that are using the money, the loan.
So we're using.
And now we're in the third year. Yes.
So I guess I'm going back to what I said, like we can as policymakers, speak into this, and we can start trying to take a much more, I guess what I would say an axe approach to something. And I don't think it's going to be to anybody's liking from all three. So I'm just going to say that. Or you guys can get in a room and you guys can work this out to try to find some margin in debt service, some margin in city manager budgets, and margins in legal. And I think that's what I would like to see from you guys first, and giving a balanced budget. And if you guys need somebody to referee, I think you guys work well enough together you guys probably don't need that. But if you do, then I guess you can call us in for that. But I mean, you guys are seasoned. None of this is taking you three by surprise, and it's not taking me by surprise either. But the difficulty we got to navigate through is it's going to take some give and take on everybody. And so anyway.
Well, additional revenue sources would be appreciated.
Trust me, I know that's where you're going to get. But that would be a refereeing discussion with a 5-member board at this point. I would really like to see what the results are of bootstrapping, tighten belt, and you guys making this work without us going and trying to dip in the pockets of our citizens. So.
Can we agree to keep it at 11? Can we budget at the same level of revenues that we?
Knowing where we're at this point in time, I can tell you that I do not see a tax cut in this budget year. So I'm at this point of, you guys need some stability, and I think that's the minimum of what we can do is communicate, hey, look, like whatever the revenues are this year is what they need to remain.
Yeah, likewise, I don't see a tax increase.
Yes, so.
That would.
Decrease.
Or increase.
Or increase.
Yeah.
So.
But we have consensus on no tax decrease.
I like it decrease better than increase.
Yeah. I think that's very.
Going twice.
I think that's very helpful, and that's exactly the kind of consensus. Obviously, y'all reserve your right to change your mind, but I think having that consensus is very helpful as we kind of start, as we move into the next 60 days.
I think the next two, and I go to this 2-year window, to your point on this stuff. The next 2 years, we've got to give you guys a stable platform. I'm committed to giving that to you, as long as you bring us budgets that don't involve like tax increases. So let's figure out.
Does that include keeping the millage rate the same?
Okay, so you're getting into some semantics here that maybe the public is not familiar with.
4.799 mils, which is what you're at today, is what I'm willing to support going through this budget process.
John.
So
Speak to Mr. Branch.
So anytime the city raises money, it's a tax. So anytime that goes above, even if we stay at the current millage rate, it is considered increasing taxes if we wind up pulling in more money than we did last year. By 1 penny, it's considered increasing taxes legally. So there's some semantics to the words here, and we want to be very, very careful on what we say and what we message. But I would support that we stay at the current millage rate that we are at now. That may
4.79,
which may result in a technical tax increase.
What was that you whispered?
I think this is how I would liken to the situation we're in. My hope is merchant fee revenues are 1% sales tax that we have as a city. I hope that increases over the year. Like the aspects of taxation that increases because economic growth and economic improvement in the city is things that should be counted on to create the balance that you need to in these. But bringing in a new tax assessment or, raising millage or things like that, that's not something that I'm willing to entertain. But allowing some stability to allow growth and stability in the next, not just this year, but the next 2 years to get us through these construction projects, I think is reasonable. And I think if our people can count on, hey, I'm not getting my millage rate increase, I'm not getting a new assessment, I'm not getting all these things, I think that'll communicate confidence in our city. So,
If I may, is there an appetite to consider looking at raising to some degree the cap on the merchant fee, since most of that is not paid for by Panama City residents?
No.
I know we've kind of talked on and off of that over the last couple of years.
No. I think the way that I see for merchant fee is I do think we've got some open doors with online things, which I think that's fair to brick and mortar as well as those. I think that's a fair tax policy. And so I think that there's some other avenues that, as far as the 1% being levied on alcohol sales, I think that's something that should happen. I think those are aspects where from at least my perspective, I'm willing to consider those, because in my opinion, a sales tax is a sales tax. Like why are we paying 1% on a waffle, but we don't pay 1% on a beer? That doesn't make any sense. I think it's a fair, even tax policy to get through and fix our city. Because ultimately that's where this money's going.
Tax the beers.
Tax the beers.
Tax the
We
beers.
paid it for months, didn't know.
So
I will be in, I understand the position that's been expressed by my colleagues, but I would be in, I would look at the merchant tax to see where there may be possibilities. I would prefer to do that before we look at cutting our employee salaries. I don't want to have the burden of balancing our city budget on the employees who work for us as we are working to have better relations with our citizens. Likewise, yes, sales tax is often said that that's a fair tax, everybody pays it. However, it is an imbalance, similar to what you were saying a moment ago, of the example of leaving the millage at the same, because growth, some people will have a tax increase that you whispered. The sales tax, we raised that, and the folks who have the least have in terms of salary, will pay more proportionately. So I'd like for us to be willing to look at ways that don't overburden any one particular entity in our community.
Yeah, I agree, because Ward 3 has most of the brand new houses. And brand new homes, for the most part, pay full tax rate. That they don't, the first year you don't get homestead. They're usually assessed at the purchase price. So they don't have benefit of many years, sometimes decades of Save Our Homes Act, where the tax rate hasn't been able to come up.
3% a year.
Yeah, the 3% a year, thank you. And so I'd love for us to continue to have new homes in Ward 3 that can help with funding some of the things that the city does. But the state legislature is also looking at different things that may impact that. So I absolutely want to take a look at the merchant fee and have not just one egg or one basket with all the eggs in it, where we're looking at multiple different ways.
When you say look at the merchant fee, clarification, you're talking about an expansion of the products or purchases that it covers? Or,
yes.
Okay, not a removing of the cap.
Not raising it up.
Okay.
Correct.
And what I heard was, we don't want to look at it at all, when the question was asked about the merchant.
No, I'm opposed to the cap. I'm
So
opposed to
specifically, he asked about the cap.
Yeah.
And I think
Okay.
I think you're going to find a lot of pushback on
No,
it.
I've already found that. Yes. But likewise, when you speak about the the property taxes, the same thing happens at the lower end for the sales tax. When we begin looking at that. And I know our state legislature has taken some luxury items off of the sales tax. So that imbalance of taxation is something I want this body to look closely at when we are deciding for the city of Panama City how we're going to balance our budget.
Janice, would you support, and I think I know the answer to this, I think online purchases with the 1%, I think there's probably consensus that that should be paid because it's paid by our brick and mortar merchants. I don't see why that wouldn't be required.
Can you explain that further?
But for instance, like right now, like we pay sales tax on everything online or in the city or in brick and mortar, so to speak. However, the merchant fee is only assessed on the brick and mortar.
So you're talking about going out to, say, Amazon and saying, hey, if you sell something to people within the city limits.
No different than every other sales tax.
No, I'm just making sure I understand.
Yes.
You would talk to the major retailers and say, hey, this, you need to provide this, similar to how Airbnb and VRBO participate.
I think this is a change in how commerce has happened. The merchant fee, having existed since the 60s, hasn't really adapted to. And I think we've got a mechanism to do that. The other thing is the items that are kind of excluded that, similar how Airbnb was. It was not assessed at 1%. Now it is. And so that's where I put, and I'm just picking on alcohol sales because, it's just an easy thing to say, but I mean, there may be other items too. So
I like picking on alcohol sales.
I just think it should be equal in assessment. Look, if we're going to have a sales tax, it should operate like a sales tax.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
I think that's the piece. And, to the point on the cap exists for the surtax itself as well. And so that's how that cap came to be structured, was it mimics exactly what's on the surtax sales tax, which funds our infrastructure stuff. So that's
Potentially also food trucks. We did it if they're on our property. That's another thought as well. Again, not raising the cap, but putting that in the loop. There's some thoughts on that.
I don't think anybody's going to go.
These are my
buy a
ideas.
$10
Just for
thing
the
and
record,
freak
I'm
out about
catching the elected officials off guard with some of these.
I think the merchant fee is an awesome thing, but I would also question how other cities can operate without it and provide parks and all the services and not have it. We're one of the 2 cities in this entire state that has it. And, it's 13.5 million from my number I remember. How could other cities do the same things we can do it without it?
And I would echo what Alan said, is like, let that create maybe some margin for you that would not exist otherwise, so that we can get through, hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure projects. But the discipline should be to operate within the confines of what you have today, just like with any family budget.
All right.
This has been very helpful.
Any other discussion?
I'm good.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Yeah, that was almost just under 3 hours.